United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do we have any additions or changes to the agenda?
We have one modification. We need to make the public hearing at 9:15 as the second reading for Maryville, not the third. Got confusing.
I'll second that amendment.
Okay, I have a first and second, all in favor, signify by aye.
Aye.
Okay, let's approve the minutes from the April 15th, 2024 regular meeting. Has everybody had a chance to read them?
Make a motion to approve.
I have a motion. Do I
Second.
have a first and second, all in favor, signify by aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Approve claims filed with the county auditor for $1,095,495.64.
To approve. It's a big one.
I'll second it.
We had a first and a second. All in favor?
All right.
Approved employee claims filed with the county auditor for $1,542.08.
So moved.
Second.
First and a second, all in favor?
All right.
Approve payroll authorization for Joshua White, Assistant County Attorney, salary increase.
Motion to approve that authorization.
Second.
I have a first and a second, all in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Motion carries. Approve payroll authorization for Victoria Eishen, Legal Assistant / Crime Victim Coordinator, wages.
Make a motion.
Second.
I have a first and a second, all in favor?
All right.
Aye. All right, we are to the GISB 96 Information Technology Agreement.
It's a GASB policy that, it's a new one that was put in place. It's basically if we lease any computer software and we have maintenance fees.
Right.
And so after talking with Elizabeth with Gardner and Company, she gave me a sample resolution. What it would amount to is if we lease any computer software for over $100,000 in one fiscal year, then it calls for a separate audit. And so this is basically just saying that's what our limitation, the 100,000s will be our limitation. So I just need a motion for approval. There was a copy of it in the folder and authorize the chair to sign. I'll get it to Elizabeth.
I make a motion to approve the GASB 96 Information Technology Agreement.
And authorize the chair to approve, to sign.
Chair to sign.
I will second that.
I have a first and a second, all in favor?
All right.
Aye. All right, Brian.
Good morning.
Good
What I've
morning.
got is a agreement for TSIP funding,
The contract,
traffic safety funds.
all right, for the W-35.
Correct. And it's for 500,000 in safety funds. Now, what this is for putting the tide paved shoulders on. It would be very similar to what we did on Otterville Boulevard. And big part of the advantage for putting the tide paved shoulder on is we did not do that on W-40 north of Quaski going to Winthrop.
Mhm.
And the heavy trucks are breaking our shoulders off on the concrete, even though that was an asphalt overlay on the old state highway. So that meant we had to do something different. And in a meeting I was at about 1985 or so.
So that's like the paved roads that, like the roads going between Independence and Jessup, the wide shoulders.
Correct.
Okay.
The other than we don't have the full 8-foot base like we had on those roads. So I've only got I got to squeeze to get 6. And
It's about the same challenge we had on our.
pretty much the same, yes. We've tried to widen out the narrow areas. We've got a couple yet the guys have to widen. And we're trying to get this 2 contract this fall and start on the bridge this fall's our goal. Now, whether that all happens or not, it's a good question. Our funding's kind of tied up in that way. We got a bunch of different sources of funding. And so,
This is maximum. What's the maximum dollar on that?
500,000 on this safety grant. One of the other ways we could have tried to handle it, looking at the concrete pavement breaking the shoulder off issue, is if we'd gone thicker, but this kind of putting the tide paved shoulder on concrete's by adding an extra inch of thickness. So it helps immensely on the life of your payment too.
And that'll cut down on the rock that's needed for the head shoulder.
Yeah, I won't need much of any rock for the shoulders, so that's right. That's like a $400,000 expense, and I looked through the numbers again, and this is 500,000 out of $1 million, so it's still costing us a few $100,000, but
You don't have to go back over it again and again.
long term, it's got a longer life,
Also, the
and it's a whole lot
traffic.
safer, and it's a whole lot safer.
A lot of heavy truck traffic on it, too.
I didn't think
40s.
W35 did, but we know W40 is probably one of my worst in the county because of hauling down to Cedar Rapids.
Safety improvements on the 35.
I'd second.
First and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And if I may, I'll leave this
Do I
here.
need to sign something?
Oh. Yeah, okay. Then when it's signed, I'll get a copy from you and get it sent off to the state.
Yep, do you want the original?
The original came out of a printer, so
No, she's talking the original signature.
Original with her signature, is that? the one you
probably,
want?
yes. So if she needed to sign a couple for you guys to keep an original, but
No,
What'll
I will
happen is
have
I'll
her sign the original. I will give it to you and I'll scan it in and we'll have it on file then.
sounds great. Appreciate it.
I'll sign it later
Yeah,
today.
Chris, when you send it to me, actually, I don't need the original. I need the original scanned. Because I'm turning around and email them off to the state anyway.
So you don't need the original, what signature
just-
signed.
Yep, I just need
Okay.
the original scanned.
All right, I can do that.
Any other questions of me?
I don't think so.
Thank you.
I'll
Thanks,
get
Brian.
with you later to see if you're got a road trip availability time on Thursday.
Okay, all right. Otherwise, I've got the gentleman I told I'd go look at his complaint this morning where the shoulders are cut too hard and he's got a 6-inch drop off to his driveway.
With that one.
That one's easily correctable. Thank you.
All right, place on the file the following manure management plans. Madison Site, Madison Township, section 27.
Motion to place that on file.
I have
I'd second
first and a second, all in favor, signify by aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. And we have 7 minutes, no, 3 minutes before our public hearing.
it. I'm gonna do Michelle real quick, because I don't think it's gonna take very long.
Michelle?
Done in 2 minutes?
Open.
Talk fast.
I
I actually think that's gonna take longer than 2 minutes, don't you? Yeah.
Well, I guess you're gonna wait. Sorry.
Sorry.
Thanks for your willingness, though.
we didn't want you to have to speed talk. And that don't work for me, so I miss every other word.
Means you have to listen faster.
Oh, yeah. This old body gets slower all the way around.
Oh, did you find that information from Jerry Stelter?
No.
Dang it. Oh.
Light fixtures still stockpiled out there.
Oh, think so. I'll have to check.
I thought we
The
got-
light fixtures,
They're gone.
They've been repurposed, yeah, yep. Thought that got taken care of, there's best much cardboard out there right now, we're trying to get that recycled.
Remember to flatten it.
Yeah, that's the problem, it's a stack about as tall as this room, so it's taken a little while to get it all busted down.
So many people go out there and they don't do that, and then it only takes a few boxes to get the dumpster filled up.
Yeah.
This is for speaking, right?
No,
No.
Yeah.
it's for attendance for a public hearing.
Oh, okay. Thank you. I was hoping.
All right,
That's
Yeah,
all.
yeah.
let's open the public hearing.
Make a
Oh.
motion to open the public hearing, second reading on E911 ordinance amendment.
Second.
I have a first and a second. All in favor of opening the hearing?
Right?
Aye. Okay, I do have a little bit of a, and I should have caught this last time, Chris, I didn't realize that the way you had put it through was this way, but the first part that you put through was the Buchanan County Administrative Guideline for Street Naming. That's actually an appendix that should be second. It should be behind the,
I just did it the way I received it and I published it that way. So are we gonna have to start all over now?
no,
I don't know.
it's part of it. It just should be second because it's an appendix. And I had the label appendix on it. I don't know why it didn't stay in. So we probably need to just make sure when we put it into the minutes that it. Second.
Yes.
Do I have is there anything from the audience?
I just wanted to, just to clarify my request there from last time when we were here. So that everybody in the county's on the same page. Chris, myself, Evan, and the secondary roads. I would just like to include that by the fall of 2024 that we take care of those three areas that I feel need taken care of: Cunningham Road, Kentucky Avenue subdivision, and the Benson Shady Brook Avenue down by Nick Donnelly. So
Okay.
those are three that I feel need taken care of because it's the county's obligation rather than promoting the customers or the residents coming to us. There's three subdivisions that have been missed over the past decade that need to be taken care of.
So are there just are there houses on them now or they're just lots or I guess,
They're all houses.
okay,
So if you go in, there's Ys and turns and houses that have been built. So if even in the light of day, FedEx driver or Tim Donnelly was down to do a water sample, they have no clue on how to find it.
Do we currently have the signs available? They haven't even been ordered.
So again,
Oh, you're talking
it
like-
goes back to why we're here.
Right.
Because I was shipping in requests of needs that I feel need taken care of, and then, secondary roads felt that it wasn't a need, and then the conversation happened. So I'm more than willing to design it, get all the information to Chris and Evan. But then, moving forward, I just feel these need taken care of by
Yeah.
2024.
Is that one we were working with, Chad? They were one that,
So I know the Cunningham Road one has not been requested. I brought it up to Evan, but the Kentucky Avenue one subdivision on the east side of the road. I know that request was placed and maybe that's being worked on. And then I know I put in the request.
on the list. Signs that are currently on the list.
Okay,
I think it was Kentucky on there. Coots and.
Coots is done. Yep. That's another great example of really similar situation to this.
That
Going
one
to
by
get
Olson's
lost.
Drive down there that will all the way back.
Trailer parks.
And then you go down there and then you sometimes got to almost 180 and come back.
Coots.
You're talking about Coots.
Yeah, that's being done and that's been.
Yeah, I have the signs for it. It's not done yet.
That's what I was gonna ask about, if Coots is in play here.
Well, if the county is gonna be responsible for putting them up, how are we going to logistically do that? And do secondary roads again, or
I will go out.
no,
this one?
I'll go out and do. I'm trying to finish up all the ones that before we changed the ordinance. All the ones we did before that, I'll go out and put up. Ones after that, moving forward, then we'll go to self-install if they can.
Okay.
and
Have we
then,
got
and you're gonna
the,
design like Ys or whatever, so we know like this number through this number is off this direction, this number through this number is off in that
Yep.
direction.
Yeah, well, the issue we run into with that is I cannot pay for that as surcharge. Directional signs. Might have to be address signs.
Well, these are address signs. They have people's addresses on them. They have people's house numbers. So why wouldn't they be address signs?
One that has a number on it. I think we can get by with it.
Well, yeah, I mean, because it's gonna have this number, this house number through this house number.
Yeah, just not gonna be.
It'd be,
narrow.
you know, similar to what I sent you three after the last meeting, you know, with a directional arrow with the number, sometimes 2 numbers, sometimes 5 numbers.
Are those 38 homes that are out off of 280th, are them all covered and taken?
All done. So that, when I got back in the office, that was one of the first projects that we got. I'm not sure, I assume secondary roads pounded them in, but,
Which one's that?
be Kurt Mark subdivision off of 280th.
Oh, yes, that would
You know,
road through that.
before you drive through there in a snowy day, and if there was snow 6 inches up, you couldn't see the rock that had, you know, 1091 number 6. So obviously we made a ton of progress there. And these 3 areas are really the same. And Chris has taken care of River Ridge, very similar, you know, when you go through the subdivision, being able to find that versus, like I said before, a sticker on the, you know, side of the door or on the storm door. It's just much better. I just feel we should be obligated to take care of these 3 because they were missed. Again, that's just my opinion.
Have you put those other 2 in yet, Chad? The request for the other 2 divisions?
So Kentucky's been in with Evan, and Benson Shady's been in with Evan. Cunningham Road I still have to do, but that's really simple.
There's, I think 4 or 5 off of Cunningham. That's the one you jog out of the county to jog back in.
Correct. Gotta go into Blackhawk County about a mile and a half and
And they
then
do
go north.
yards, mostly sheep pasture.
Were they on the list?
Not yet, no.
Not yet, no.
Okay, once they get on the list, then I'll put the signs over.
There's gonna be a new house being built there, and then I recently tested water there, so it's quite confusing.
And then for like the new subdivision out by River Ridge, that is on the list. I did not order the signs for those because there's no houses on them. Do we want to,
I'd wait until they're built.
because I know I got a ton of signs out there for properties that don't have any houses on it right now. That I'm trying to manage.
Yeah, so I anticipate that subdivision going west to east, 2 to 4 at a time, you know, and that'll probably be a decade plus long venture.
I heard rumors that there's gonna be probably 2 more houses built in the new latest Frank's edition out there
Oh,
too,
good.
coming up, so.
Good deal.
One thing I wanna stress here, I know we're coming upon this, next public hearing, we're past time already, but I wanna make sure, I'm all along on this whole thing, my major concern was elderly people, handicapped people struggling, trying to get this done.
Okay, and
I wanna make sure that we help them out as much as we can, and there's some flexibility there to help these people in that condition, to get them signs up. We need to realize that it could be a struggle for some people.
I totally understand what you're saying, but typically the houses that are going up in the country are being built and they're gonna have a builder. And more than likely, the builder's gonna want that house number there because that's how they get parts and the materials delivered.
Yeah.
So,
I get that. I just wanna make sure if that ever happens, that we work hard to help them
Yeah.
out.
and we'd already kind of talked about
Discussed
that.
about if they request help, I'll go do it. Yeah, fine line there that.
Yeah, and I'm just hoping everybody utilizes the 811 call. That makes me nervous.
Right, and Evan, you got the coordinator's phone number added, the office phone added to,
We'll just tack him on to the end of the second survey. In case they have any questions. Sure. Yep, 334-2101. So it's just there on the second page. No problem.
All right. Is there anything else for this public hearing?
On some of these lines here, we're gonna include emails and phone numbers? Or,
It already is emailed. And there's the phone number.
then how about
That number-
evidence, Chad, we don't have, or we got.
Well, Evan is, they probably don't need Evans.
At this point, I've already received more from them than they know I'm receiving.
How about Chad? Tad, do you feel like your phone number should be put on there, you and Amber's phone number along with your email?
I can put that in.
I would agree. I think our office number should be there.
If there's nothing else, I'm gonna make a motion to close.
Second motion.
Got a motion to close, a second to close, all in favor?
All right.
Aye. I would like a motion to accept this with the amendment that the appendix is, the word appendix is put back on the appendix and that's put second.
So basically, this whole resolution that's been approved, you want it, I mean, you want it switched around? or
It needs to
what?
look like this. Because the appendix in section 8 refers to an appendix, so you have to have an appendix if it refers to
Okay,
it.
I just went out the way I received it.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I just put them in an email and went, so.
Do you have this where you can email it to me so I don't have to retype everything and shuffle everything around? That would be great, thank you.
Okay,
I think when I received it, it was in 2 attachments.
yeah, there was 2 attachments.
So are you guys going to hold a third hearing on this, or are you going to waive the third hearing?
I think we should have a third hearing so we can review the changes that we talked about here. And because we should have the changes made to the application form too, that haven't discussed.
Okay. All right, so can I get a motion to set the public hearing?
So what now?
A motion to approve what we have with the changes and to set the public hearing.
So moved.
Second,
Do you want a date and time to set the public hearing?
That'd be
Yes,
great.
ma'am.
It's your hearing.
Well, what's on your schedule?
Next. All right.
Do we have anything
9:10.
else set at on the 29th?
We open bids for the rail cars. Well, no. He wants to. The only email, the email says, please place on the agenda to discuss purchasing it by public letting rail cars for Taylor Avenue, but I thought you guys already did that once, but maybe this is a different bid.
Re-advertising.
That's. Just got that from Brian, so.
So I move that we add it to the agenda for the 29th at 9:10.
second.
First and second, all in favor?
All right.
Aye.
And now we have a public hearing, second reading in the Maryville subdivision.
Make a motion to open public hearing for the second reading of Maryville subdivision.
At first and second, all in favor, signify by aye.
All right.
All right.
Thanks.
Cheryl.
And again, a little bit confusing. I apologize for the first time. We had a request about waiving the second and third. Obviously, we decided not to do that.
Right.
Apologize for not reminding us of that request. But with this subdivision, we all know the area is up by Denali's and the existing River Ridge subdivision, which is to the north. So this has been through all the process in regards to the preliminary plat. The rezoning with the conditions that were put on it was done several months ago. And then the 2 mile radius has been done twice by the city in regards to reviews. The engineers seen it, county attorney, myself, Marine, and with the unanimous recommendation from the P and Z body with the conditions that were listed in the paper. I read that on Saturday. These have all been changed, and I communicated with the engineers, talked to a Marine. The first one with the condition of case 2024-001 was the site plan was either to be named Maryville subdivision or Maryville addition. So it doesn't sound like another unincorporated town within Buchanan County. In the top right legal description in line number 9, the number 83.42 does not match the radius description to the top left of lot A on the plat, which is 83.43. That's been changed. Number 3, the description on the lower portion of part 1 refers to the east line of lot A through the description as south line of lot A, change south to east. Number 4, within the same description, instrument number 2004 should be number 2014. And then number 5, they also want to ensure that all pages are labeled lots 1, 2, 3, going left to right or west to east. As some of the pages when we first got it was labeled 1, 1, and 1. So all those items have been taken care of. I do want to just go through a few topics that, were discussed. And again, our legal obligation as a county has done our job with the paved road from Golf Course Boulevard to Denali's on the golf course, but there's several questions, concerns on liability from the River Ridge subdivision, which I took calls from or emails from Marty Brown, Wayne Berg, Nancy Slocum, Michelle Van Sickle, Rick Crawford, Rick Mosier, Jeffrey Shonka, and then Mary McGill. So again, everything that I explained the last time in regards to there's no current cart path shown on the subdivision that's going to access that private road. Lou developed that in 99 for a certain reason, so it wouldn't get annexed into the city. And that has to just be a agreement conversation between those two parties in regards to how they're going to handle it. They're going to assess Brad with his new subdivision with these 24 units. Where they go with that is really not our obligation. We're not going to send out the county sheriff or some complaint on trespassing. There is conversation of potential purchase of property to the northeast that would then access the golf course, and where they're at on that, I'm not sure, but Taylor's could maybe give you some more information about that. I have not taken any calls since our first hearing. Maybe you have, maybe you haven't, but again, early on, there was a lot of concern on traffic. I will also add that Brian did include that with his comments in regards to County Engineer Brian Kylie did include some input about zoning commission requiring future subdivisions near or on high traffic roads, potentially add turning lanes. And again, I shared last time into the P and Z body. I feel that that's a decision that this board and then the secondary roads would be heavily involved in. To put that type of information in front of the P and Z body, we don't do that kind of stuff in regards to traffic count, safety, accidents, and speed limits. So not that that shouldn't happen or can't happen in the future, but I just wanted to share that that was the main concern. Sue Ann Raymond early on was the boisterous one in regards to the traffic count being, added. And again, since Okoboji Grill was established in 2008, obviously the traffic count out in that area has been substantially increased. So I would recommend that you approve the subdivision. And again, if you feel comfortable going to the third hearing, I'm good with that as well.
I don't see where the addition of these dwellings is gonna really impact the traffic count as much as Denali's does.
I would have to agree.
Yeah.
You know, most of the time that in our community, when people are buying condos, not that this trend won't change, but it's probably gonna be older or married couples who potentially go to the south during the winter months. And so I don't anticipate, and again, this, these two driveways, the area that would be most impacted would be between Randy Blinn and the Weepy Ayler's current property around that curve on Golf Course Boulevard. But as far as going to Denali's, I think the main traffic concern from the north property owners is with golf carts and how that's gonna affect their yards and their private.
Just for curiosity, Chad, how was the name Maryville selected?
So that would be, for Brad's mother.
Okay,
Most people know her as Mary Mace, Mary
Yeah.
Higgins. So she was a long resident, owned Pat's Tavern. And so Denali's was actually was named for his brother Mark's dog, who recently passed, and then Mary passed here recently as well.
okay. Anybody else got anything for the public hearing?
Does anybody? To the public, does anybody has anything?
Is that a retention pond or just, are we still gonna have like a driving range or something?
It is a retention pond, excuse me.
So retention pond here for most of the gutters, downspouts, drainage off the road. And then here's another one that will keep the area near the rear that has a little bit of sloping effect.
And those rectangles,
Those are all seepage beds. And again, the seepage beds, each one will be actually treated 3 times. So with the technology we have, it'll go into a solid liquid, normal concrete tank, which most people know. Then it'll go into a peat filter or cocoa filter, and then it'll be pumped up to an elevation to then be saturated in the soil. And so, with the technology that we have and the small footprint we have, that's the best option to take care of it. Those rectangles, depending on the, when we get done with the grading, we just need to have that type of square footage. Sometimes they become a triangle, sometimes they become a square. It all just depends on the grade and the depth that we need to go to. Good question.
Anything else?
If nothing else, I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second motion.
I have a first and a second, all in favor?
All right. Make a motion to approve the second reading, and we need to set third.
Or can we waive the third reading?
I think
Up to you,
last
gentlemen.
week we let publicly we was gonna go ahead with the third, so.
Or you gonna set it then for the 9:15?
9:15 on the 29th.
You're gonna have enough time in between the two of them. This week you did not.
Yeah, let's go 9:20.
I have first, do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
All right,
Aye. Motion carries. All right, Michelle,
thanks for all your work on this, Chad.
thank you,
Yeah,
Chad,
you got it.
I appreciate it.
What did we decide there? What day?
The 29th,
29?
next week,
9:20.
9:20.
9:20. Thanks, Amber.
Chad, you want your poster and
I'll take it. I'm gonna stay for the carbon solution.
hey, Michelle. Welcome back.
Hey, I need to get up and stretch.
There you go.
Okay, so I am here to talk about taking Elizabeth Karsten from second deputy to first deputy, which would be a percentage of my wages. And I've done a little homework to see where I could come up with some extra funding in my next budget. I would want it to start on July 1st. So I initially had asked for 5,000 for my furniture, and I was going to look at the copier. Cause my copier is pretty old and now we're starting to have issues. But I have over 4,000 still in this budget. So I am gonna move forward and get my copier out of this budget. And I've already visited with Jason a little bit and he's gonna help me. I've got one quote, but he's gonna work with me with access. And I've already gone down and looked at their copier because I want something simple. We don't need bells and whistles. So I really kind of like theirs and it's pretty good price. So
What's the availability? I know
I-
some of these copiers.
I asked him.
Waited ever because of the supply chain issue.
okay, well, I asked him when I talked to him on the phone. And he'll be back on Monday and I told him I have to get it in this budget. And I said, how fast do you think we can get? He thought we could get it in probably about 3 weeks. So basically, he already knows I'm kind of looking at what they have. I just need to add a drawer because they just have the letter I need to leave. So there's where I came up with 5,000. And then with my passports, I took and they've been doing really good. So I took from the beginning of the year to April 18th. And then I took the 155 pictures and I divided that to come up with what we basically would do a month.
Mhm.
And I took that then towards our 15. Well, we had budgeted revenue for 6,000. When I do it that way, which I know some months are gonna be better than other months, but like I said, I averaged it. I came up with 2,100 extra. And like I said, our passports are doing good, and getting more out there. The other thing I looked at is in April 25, we will be doing our boat renewals. Now get $2 for postage versus $1. So every time we do a boat and we're gonna do it by mail, you get $2 just in postage that I get to keep all that. None of that goes to the DNR. And I got a hold of David at the DNR and we have 2,457 boats in our county. The system went down, so he wasn't able to give me the total on recreational. Cause we also, when we do a recreational through the mail, we get $2. So I kind of took that and divided and by 2, kind of came up with a little over 2,000 if we do that by mail. And then the other thing I looked at is my supplies. And I was gonna wait to order my envelopes and some of my stuff, but I've looked at my budget for this year and I have enough money, so I went ahead and ordered my envelopes. So I'll be good for envelopes probably for the next 3 years or 4. We try to encourage people to send a self-addressed stamped envelope when we are doing it through the mail, but less and less am I doing mail. It's all coming through e-files, which that is no postage. It's all done through the computer. So I also would have money in my supplies quite a bit. I mean, I'm pretty set up for all the little itty bitty staples, pens, all that I'm set up for. So I'd have that. So that's what I came up with to use to come up with the extra money to be able to move her up.
And what was the additional dollar to move her up?
$9,110.16.
And I did go down and talk to Karen. I had 2 options. I could create a position. In that case, I had to advertise. If I move her into a first deputy, I don't have to do any advertising. It's just an automatic move. And the code says I'm allowed to, as long as it is okay by the Board of Supervisors.
And it's authorized to have 2 first deputies?
Yeah.
Yes.
Karen checked into it. And I also, a few years ago, visited with Elizabeth that's here doing our auditing. And she also sent me an email stating She did not find anything in the code that limits me.
But you're not looking at doing her first deputy as second deputy, right?
I'm sorry, what was that?
You're not gonna have them both titled as first deputies. are you?
Yeah, but just a different percentage. Ian is 885 and she'd be at 60.
So right now Elizabeth is a second deputy, but she's in the union courthouse union.
Okay.
So if she moves her to first deputy, then
She's no
she's
longer.
not constrained.
We're doing the math, not even adding in, because you never gave a dollar amount for the supply. It looks like you
Oh.
got like $9,000, what you're saying for the copier, passport revenue, registration revenue. That's gonna get you right at the 9,000 that you need for additional
For supplies, I had 1,500.
15.
So I on the safe side, leave 500. Take that. I don't foresee why I would need, to buy anything furniture wise. That's all. I got, like I said, a little over 4,000 to use for a copier.
She's found all the funding. Chris, you still have to do an amendment.
Yep. And the revenue, there's no guarantee.
Right, right.
So if she, so like right now, if we zero out the 1,500 in the office supplies, that leaves her $0 for office supplies for all next fiscal. And same thing with the office equipment, if we take that out. So that's 6,500 out of the 9,000. So no matter what, it's a budget amendment.
I guess my major comment would be, these are the type of things we need to do at the beginning of our budget process rather than finalize the budget and then all of a sudden we're
Yeah, and I'd like to
making
apologize.
changes.
My thoughts were I was gonna do that in my next budget, but, some things have developed here with some of the hiring, which I know every office is different. But now I've got to take care of what I got, so I don't lose it, and then I gotta start all over. She has run the office by herself. When we weren't able to make it in because of weather, she handles everything with DNR. And she's very good at the counter. And for me, I can't afford to lose her. She's an asset to me. She's an asset to the office. We've put a lot of time into her. She's put a lot of time into us. I feel she's valuable.
So both
That's why I'm stepping up.
both your staff people are pretty flexible then, they can cover for each other and
Yep.
move
Ian was
around.
gone last week. I'm busy doing e-files because that just keeps increasing. She did all the counter, answering the phone. She did the vitals and the DNR. I had to step up once in a while. Like I said, she's ran that office when we couldn't get in for snow. And I know people are like, oh, you wouldn't believe the snowmobilers that come in on a day.
They're not gonna buy their license until it snows.
That's exactly right. They wait till the day it snows. So she ran the office, she balanced, skipped her lunch and stayed there and went home. I feel she's dedicated.
It all reflects if you have people like that who, we need to serve our public well, I'm glad she's able to do that.
I feel very fortunate when I go to meetings, and I'm sitting there, I see other recorders getting emails, have to step out. My staff does very good. Very seldom do I hear from them when I'm out of the office. Which makes me feel good to know that.
I make a motion that we authorize Michelle to promote her to first deputy. For Elizabeth to be promoted to first deputy. And to have her work with the county auditor to submit a budget amendment.
In that, she'll be going to what, 60%? And we need to have that in the motion, I would say.
And effective July 1st.
That's 60%.
Yeah.
Okay,
That
I'll
was kind
second
of
that.
piecemeal, but you get it all, Chris? Maybe.
first and a second. All in favor signify by aye.
Right.
Aye. Motion carries.
Okay, so she just gave me a letter regarding submitting. Oh, it's not dated
I'll go back.
to approve I would say you already did this. This would be duplication, approving her to this position.
Do I need it in?
That's Karen question.
Yeah, I would give that to Karen.
Which I already know, Karen already told me to give her a letter, whatever.
I would think there'd have to be a note or something in our file with the date and everything, so.
Karen's gone today, so I'll meet up with her tomorrow.
Yep, it's good. All right.
Thank you, guys. I do appreciate it.
Yes, for everything. Next up, Chris, is that all I hope? Representatives for the Summit Carbon Solution. Good morning.
Morning.
There's a plug-in up here. Someplace. Got it? Yeah.
First of all, I wanted to make sure that the public is probably gonna be interested in hearing your presentation also, so if you could give your names and at what capacity you serve.
I guess I was kind of assuming that was part of the.
Yes, we will go over that.
I don't know which outlet you got.
What did it say on here?
No, they don't label anything.
Yeah, there's a lot of wires.
I don't know what that one goes to.
You want me to try it?
Yeah,
Okay.
because it should be number 2, once you.
It's doing something.
Something.
Yep, there.
we go.
Hmm.
Yeah, Jason, this is label. You know.
Alrighty. Well, thank you for having us today. My name is Kaylee Langrell. I work for I work for Turnkey Logistics. We represent Summit Carbon Solutions, doing primarily the non-environmental permitting and stakeholder relations. I have Grant Terry here with me today. I'll let him introduce himself.
I've been with Summit since August of 22, been kind of involved with a lot of the different aspects of kind of what got us to where we are today. My role is I'm going to be one of the 2 project managers here in the state. I'll end up controlling about half the state. You can think of it that way, as far as everything from, the construction process all the way through commissioning and operations.
So our goal here today is just to kind of open up a line of communication and introduce the project to you. So I'll try to get through this presentation kind of quickly. And then if you guys have any questions or anyone else has any questions, we can try to answer those. So starting with our ethanol plant partners, when this project started about 2.5, 3 years ago, we had about 30 ethanol plant partners. At this point, with the new Poet and Valero additions, along with a couple of others, we are up to 57 ethanol plant partners on our 5-state project. So Summit Carbon Solutions is going to be working in Iowa, Nebraska, South Dakota, North Dakota, and Minnesota. And once this project is done, it will be the largest of its kind. It's not to say it's something new, it just will be the largest. So we're gonna kind of break things down little by little in a couple different ways, and then hopefully by the end of this, the project will make more sense. I know you guys had previously dealt with Navigator, so you probably know a little bit about it, but so where is the CO2 coming from? Ultimately, it's coming from the stack of the ethanol plant. We have, for every 3 pounds of corn, you have about 1 pound of ethanol and 1 pound of dried distiller's grain. And now we have the opportunity for that pound of CO2. There is that market that's opening up for that, for the ethanol plants. So how the project works is in 3 different phases, and we'll go over these a few times. But it starts out with the capture process. So at each ethanol plant. So 57 capture facilities. There will be a capture facility at each ethanol plant. And we will have the capacity to capture up to 18 million tons of CO2 per year. At the ethanol plant, once it goes into the capture facility, we'll compress it and put it into the pipeline where it will be transported. We will have about 2,500 miles of pipe, and we do expect to be operational in 2026. From there, it will go up to North Dakota, where it will be permanently sequestered underground. And the reason why, I guess I can touch on this a little bit, the reason why we chose North Dakota is because the specific, like the rock formation that's required, I know that they have that in a couple of places in the US. So Illinois would be one of them. That's where Buchanan was previously going. I know Wyoming as well, and North Dakota. And North Dakota is where we chose just based on the way our route worked out. So just breaking this down a little bit further, the CO2 at the ethanol plant will be captured. So the CO2 that you see coming out of stacks today, once our project is in operation, you will no longer see that coming out. It will be going into our pipeline. Unless there's some kind of maintenance or something we need to do, we can just shut the pipeline off and the CO2 would just emit into the atmosphere as it does today. And like I said, it will be captured and compressed. The PSI of the pipeline will range from 1,300 to 2,100 PSI. The highest being at the capture facility and then dwindling down until it reaches a pump station and then back up again. And then, like I said, it will be permanently sequestered up in North Dakota. And then we'll run through this one more time, see if I missed anything. So capture and compression, and there is an ethanol plant in this county. The Fairbank ethanol plant, I believe it straddles the county line. So between Fayette and Buchanan County. And I'll get to a map here in a minute and kind of show you guys what we're looking at. And then it will be put into the pipeline. This will be a US manufactured steel pipeline with wall thickness ranging from 0.250 inches to 0.688 inches thick. Again, approximately 2,500 miles, and the diameter will range from 6 to 24 inches. And we can talk about the diameter a little bit more once we get to the maps. And then again, as far as storage goes, we do work through the state of North Dakota's Department of Mineral Resources, and we follow all of their standards. So in Illinois and a couple of other places, I know they have to work through the EPA. North Dakota actually put a lot of money and research into it so they could get permission from the EPA to regulate their Class 6 wells up there. So here's just a project overview map. Each of the little blue boxes are going to be the ethanol plant and then also where the capture facility would be located. And the white line would obviously be the pipeline route. And then that big gray area is the sequestration site. So here is the Buchanan County map. As you can see, you might be able to see the tiny little bit of pipeline up there. I'm going to show you the Fayette County map as well. But really right now, what we're seeing is that the way our route lays is we will cross directly over the county line and be on ethanol plant property. We won't be crossing any roads in Buchanan County, anything like that, but we do expect the capture facility to be located in this county right now. That could change because like I said, I know the ethanol plant owns ground in both counties, but right now it's looking like it will be in Buchanan County. And then here's the Fayette County map, just to give you a little bit of a better idea. And you can even see over in Bremer County where it comes down. I believe we are falling pretty close to what Navigator had for their route, except instead of going over to Delaware County, we just stopped. This is the farthest east we go.
Grant, could you maybe stand up and kind of point to where that line is that she's talking about? Because I don't think they can see it probably back
Sure,
here.
which line?
Where
Just the
the
pipeline.
Pipelines come up the blue line, go
Okay.
over into Bremer.
Very good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So all the new laterals that we are adding are going to be 6 to 8 inches. So this pipeline that's coming down will be 6 to 8 inches. Once
All right, let's see. Things gonna work?
Between Fairbank and the ethanol plant. So we are coming around the eastern side in order to, you know, not cause any problems there. We don't think that pipelines deter expansion, but we know that that's something that we've heard on our previous project that people are upset about. They don't want us going close to those expansion areas, so we're avoiding that and coming around on the eastern side rather than between the city of Fairbank and the actual ethanol plant. Okay. Any questions on that before I go forward?
I have a question, size of the pipe.
Yep.
Apparently, and I asked this question previously, so everybody knows that, original plans, I think from Navigator was to go over to Dyersville and pick up that plant. Now that's not gonna happen. It's probably pretty obvious because you're only bringing a 6-inch line in. So there's probably no way you could pick up Dyersville with a 6-inch line.
Yeah, there's no plans for that. I'm not sure. It really depends on, I don't know how big the ethanol plant in Dyersville is, but it really depends on how much CO2 they're outputting. And, you know, that's more Grant's area of
Yeah, I mean,
expertise.
that's why we typically say 6 to 8 for a single plant. You know, if, and again, it's on the commercial side, to my knowledge, we aren't having any discussions with an additional plant over in this area. But if there was, that would be most likely, would call for a utilization of an 8-inch line.
And with the possible expansion of Poet, you know, this aviation fuel is getting to be a big talking point and stuff like that. If they would increase, say, their output by, say, 50%, will this 6-inch line still be able to handle that expansion of the plant?
I'm not on the hydraulic side, but it should. So we're not gonna build, you know, a 6-inch line and then not take into consideration any expansion from the plant itself. I mean, those are conversations that we have up front and we take into consideration with the hydraulics so that no, you know, if we had to go back and do an upsize, I mean, that would be, you know, a huge cost and waste of time, in my opinion, when it could be accounted for initially, right? So, I mean, those will be part of the conversation and the thought process with the hydraulic team whenever they're designing this.
Is there any effect, I know you're not an engineer, I guess, is there any effect on aquifer by doing this?
As far as what type of effect?
Well, the aquifer, I gotta understand, our water comes from up north down here, so. Will there be any effect on the aquifer by the trenching end of this?
I mean, the trenching end of it, as far as with like the pipeline construction, I mean, it's fairly minimal. I mean, if you're thinking about a 6-inch line itself, I think the only thing that would differ from, you know, a normal pipeline going on the ground today is we're going an extra foot of depth of cover. So instead of the 3 foot that's required by federal law, we're going 4 foot minimum. Sometimes, you know, if they have drain tile present on their property, we might be at 6 feet. But when you think about a trench, I mean, you know, 99% of the time we'll be utilizing a trencher. The only time that we would, you know, convert over to an excavator would be if, you know, there were safety concerns. But I mean, the pipeline trench itself, you know, kind of like Dakota Access, they put a 36-inch line. You know, if we're thinking about a 6-inch, typically what the contractor is going to take is you got your 6 inches for your width of pipe, and then we're going to give them 12 inches. So they'll take 6 inches on either side of the you know, the proposed 6-inch, and that will be the width of the trench itself. But I mean, it's not going to be, you know, detrimental to any underground structures. I mean, it's the pipeline construction is going to be pretty minimal.
One other question, I know this is going up to Dakotas, but stuff, once this is put in the ground, can it be retrieved if needed later?
I mean, the geological formation that we're going to be sequestering in is from 1.5 miles to 2 miles of depth underneath an impermeable caprock layer. So, and the reason we're going as deep as we're going is because it cannot return to the surface once it's under that impermeable layer. You know, we've got the proposed storage capacity for that area, which we don't have 100% of that available storage capacity leased at this point because it's not necessary. If we need to expand over time, we will, but it's, 250 billion metric tons of storage, which we float at max capacity for, max capacity. So the 18 million for 100 years, we'd use less than 1% of the storage capacity. But to answer your question, no, sir. Receive the benefit that the ethanol plants that, we're proposing here and, reduce that carbon intensity score, the CO2 has to be permanently sequestered. That's a requirement for them to receive that benefit.
So it couldn't be, because I mean, there's other uses for CO2.
Correct.
So it couldn't be off-sited someplace and used for beverages or whatever.
Not if the ethanol plants want to continue to receive their benefits on the carbon intensity score reduction.
So the government essentially tied our hands to reuse something that we could reuse.
For
I'm just gonna throw that out there.
for the purpose of the intensity score reduction, it has to be permanently sequestered. Now, there are going to be opportunities that if, someone else wanted to connect onto the line and utilize their CO2 for, say, another service, then they could do that. But for the ethanol plant's purposes, it has to be permanently sequestered for them to receive that benefit.
I thought part of the use of this was for assisting with fracking up there.
No, sir.
It's not.
That's a
No,
common
sir.
misconception.
That's what I've understood at one time.
How much water is used?
The rule of thumb that I use is when you think of the water usage at the ethanol plant today, when we install our capture facilities, it's going to be an increase of about 10%. Now it's going to fluctuate a little bit just depending on the size of the ethanol plant, but the 10% is a good kind of go by with that.
This, the use of the water is not use and dump. I mean, it's recycled, isn't it?
At the ethanol plant, I believe it is.
So it's used for the cooling towers.
Correct.
And I do believe we have to go through the DNR on how much of it is recycled. My understanding and what I have been told by Sabrina is that most of it will be recycled water.
But again, that's all controlled through the permit with the
Yeah.
DNR.
That would be good. I would like that being able to be recycled.
Yeah, because it is just used for the cooling towers. So
It will end up being what I would imagine a similar process. I'm more so on the pipeline side, and I can speak to kind of a similar situation with us. When we go to hydro test the pipeline itself, we'll probably be testing in 20 to 25 mile segments, and then we'll end up pushing the water. So we'll just test a segment, push the water to the next segment, do the testing like that. But then we follow the state guidelines when it comes to how we dispose of that water, the restoration process involved with that as well.
I'll move on to talking a little bit more about the market aspects of the project. So each year the ethanol industry adds about $43 billion plus to the annual United States GDP and $5.5 billion plus dollars to the Iowa GDP. And the ethanol industry supports 340,000 jobs in the US, 44,000 of those being in Iowa. So economic benefits of this project. This slide talks a little bit about the jobs that this project is going to offer. And one important thing to note is that these are phase 1 jobs. So this is before we added the Poet and Valero plants. So these will increase quite a bit because we pretty much almost doubled the amount of ethanol plants we have on the project now. So, but this is just to give you an idea of the amount of jobs for the capturing, compression, and the pipeline phase of the project. And then there is an $8 billion capital investment in the project with operations expected to begin in 2026, like I mentioned before. This is a breakdown of the estimated new annual property taxes that will come into each county. It's based on the number of miles of pipe, the expected diameter of pipe, and if there is a capture facility or not.
Right. And
So-
it's annual, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Not over the life of the thing.
Correct. These are annual estimates. So Buchanan County, because like I said, the capture facility, we're expecting it to be located in this county. We're seeing about $816,000 annually. And that's pretty much coming from the capture facility since there's hardly any miles of pipe. There's actually less than a mile of pipe in this county.
That's 816,000 just for what you need to do for
The capture.
capture at the plant,
Yes, sir.
not what's happening already.
Correct. And like I said, these are estimates and, you wouldn't expect to see any of that money until after 2026 when we're already in operation.
Right. And there's no phasing in. Like, once you do it, it's just done.
Correct. Yep. So here we can talk a little bit about our acquisition for your county and all the counties with the new laterals on them. We have not started acquisition yet. We can't start acquisition until after we have our June IUB informational meetings. But so for phase one of the project, we are at 73% of landowners signed project wide, 72% in Iowa. And these would be voluntary easements. We do not have the right to eminent domain as of yet. So that decision has not been made at the state level yet. But like I said, we'll have those June informational meetings, and then we will begin to reach out to landowners. Only landowners, I believe, in this county that would be on the active route is just the ethanol plant. There might be some landowners outside of the ethanol plant that receive an invitation to come to that informational meeting, but that would just be because they're within our notification corridor. And that's a state regulated thing. So just because if someone in this room receives an invite, that doesn't necessarily mean you're on the route, but it means that you're close. So you might want to attend just to hear the information, because people like Grant will have construction, capture. I don't know if sequestration will be there, but also members of the IUB. A lot of good information at those meetings. And I'll email you guys with the date, time, and location once we have those. So that takes us to our commitment to landowners. We want to work with landowners, community leaders, and stakeholders like yourselves. It's part of the reason why we're here today. Part of the reason why we had reached out to you previously before we submitted our route, just to see if there were any places that we should avoid. And then the safety of our operations, that's always been a core company value. We're going above and beyond a lot of the PHMSA regulations for X-raying 100% of the wells.
I'm used to use an acronym, and there's people out here that probably don't know what that stands for.
So PHMSA is the grant, I forget, it has it on this slide, here we go. It's the Pipeline Hazardous Materials Safety Administration. So they're in a part of the Department of Transportation at the federal level. So they regulate us, everything from design, construction, operations, maintenance of the pipeline. But like I said, we're going to be X-raying 100% of the wells instead of just the 10% that's required by PHMSA. Grant mentioned the depth before. We're going to be going 4 foot when the requirement is 3 foot. And we know a lot of drain tile lays at that level, so we're going to go underneath that if we need to, depending on how deep it's buried, but we will stay at least 2 feet away from drain tile. What else can we say? We do a lot of, we've started doing safety tours, so if people want to come out and hear more specifics on how we plan to make sure the pipeline is safe, hear more about our integrity management plan, emergency response plan, they can come out and hear from us directly. And then also the informational meetings, and then coming to the board meetings and giving updates like this.
I think our next round of safety meetings is going to transpire after the new round of informational meetings is complete.
Okay.
So June is the time frame that we're looking at right now for, this new round of informational meetings with the IUB. Ultimately, they have to approve the dates that we propose to them. The most recent dates that we've submitted were again in June. So if they end up approving those dates, then once those have completed, there will be safety meetings. And those will be broadcast, I believe, a little bit more broad than the informational meetings that would typically only go to, the direct impact and then the notice corridor surrounding the line itself.
And then next, we are going to comply with the agricultural impact mitigation plan. This is something we've already submitted for our phase one of the project, but it pretty much lays out how we plan to restore the land as we're going through construction. And that's part of what your county inspector, which do we know if they'll have a county inspector still? Okay. So your county inspector would follow us through construction and make sure that we are restoring the land in accordance to that AIMP. They also have full stop work authority, which is something they did not have when DAPL came through. So we've heard a lot of complaints about, yields after DAPL, but we're hoping this is something that fixes that issue.
So we're gonna have to get an inspector, even though it's gonna be on Poet's property only in our county.
But they pay for these.
Yeah, we would pay.
Yeah, I understand all that, but I'm just saying is that then we gotta go hire one yet. I thought I was under the impression I was told that it means it was on your private property there, that we didn't have to have an inspector.
So as long as it's in your county, regardless of it's on private property or not, then you are, I would say, required by state law to at least appoint the county inspector. Again, those are pass-through costs to us.
Right.
But yes, sir.
Because we haven't even did what some counties kind of went ahead and made letters of intents and stuff like that, and we did not do any of that.
Yes, sir.
We can double check on that and make sure. And I can get back with you.
You have time.
Yeah, there's plenty of time. Okay, so this talks about safety a little bit more. So capture technology has been deployed at 40+ ethanol facilities throughout the US. We're regulated by PHMSA. That's something that kind of touched on earlier. We are considered a hazardous liquid pipeline by PHMSA, and we're regulated by the Chapter 49 CFR 195. If you want to look that up, there is a pretty good table of contents. So if there's something specific you're concerned about, there's a table of contents with a hyperlink. There are more than 5,300 miles of CO2 pipelines that are currently operating in the US with 0 fatalities. So something I like to touch on here is there have been 0 fatalities, but we don't want to shy away from the dangers of the pipeline. The number one danger would be the pressure, because if you are someone in the most likely scenario of a rupture would be more than likely a third party strike. So if you are the person out on the backhoe, you don't call 811, you hit the pipeline, you hit it again, because it's probably not going to bust on the first try. Your most immediate danger would be the pressure. And then the CO2, yes, is an asphyxiant. It doesn't become dangerous until, about 40,000 plus parts per million. Whereas other things that are running through the ground today, like hydrogen sulfide, become dangerous at about 10 parts per million. But there's still a concern there. So we want to make sure that we highlight that, as well as, I think the elephant in the room, something that a lot of people talk about, is Satarsha, Mississippi, the pipeline that ruptured in 2020. There's a lot of differences between our project and the project in Satarsha. But the one thing I want to make sure that I highlight is that we will be carrying CO2 from the ethanol plant. So it's 99% pure CO2. The pipeline in Satarsha, Mississippi was carrying naturally occurring CO2. So there were other chemicals in that pipeline, one of those being hydrogen sulfide. We know this because people say that they smell rotten eggs. You won't smell anything when it comes to CO2. So not to say that this pipeline is safe, nothing's ever going to happen, and, or the safest ever. We are going to make it safe, but, like I said, we want to highlight the dangers that there are. But pipeline is also going to be the safest method of transportation. So when you're looking at putting CO2 on a truck or a rail car, pipeline is certainly going to be the better option.
Because they're going to sequester it no matter what. They're going to sequester it because they want the credits. So if they put it in a truck, there is a big chance that truck could have an accident. A bigger chance they could have an accident than putting it underground.
Correct.
Yes, ma'am.
Along with the amount of CO2 that we're trying to take from these 57 ethanol plants, it's just honestly, it's not feasible. There's not enough truck drivers. Right. There's not enough trucks to carry it all the way up to North Dakota.
And that statement, regardless of commodity, is always true. The pipeline is always going to be the safest form of transportation.
Now, you had mentioned through the permit process that would be done through the DNR and EPA and everything like that. That everything up there at Poe will have to be sequestered.
Right.
Okay, so if you have a failure downstream from Poet up there, if there's a failure, will that cause the Poet, until that repair or anything's done, will that cause that plant to have to 100% shut down?
No, sir. So if there's ever an issue with the pipeline itself, the Poet essentially has the ability to shut down the pump. That would be part of the compression system, and then operate as normal. Now, they wouldn't receive the benefit of considering the ethanol that they're producing as that lower carbon intensity score ethanol. But I mean, they don't have to shut down if anything is going wrong with the pipeline itself. They can just release the atmosphere as they're doing today and continue production
They'll
there.
lose credits.
Correct. Let's say that last part again.
They'll lose credits.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Or they have had the option to put it in a truck or in a tank.
Correct. Yes, sir.
Rail. Okay.
So, next point being, we will only use high quality material and equipment, and prefer to use material and equipment made or manufactured in the US. It goes back to the pipeline being the US manufactured steel. And then we will utilize proven technologies and employ best practices or industry practices to ensure the safety of the communities that we run through. So this slide talks about SAF, sustainable aviation fuel. But before we get into that, I kind of want to go back to just the whole goal of the project from the beginning. And that has been to keep ethanol viable, keep corn prices high, keep the prices of land, at a decent value. And we can do this by lowering the carbon intensity scores at the ethanol plants. So with this project, we'll be able to cut the carbon intensity scores at some of these ethanol plants in half. And really, pipeline projects like this are the only way to effectively and efficiently do that. If they, there's regulations coming from large buyers of ethanol, Canada, California, other states are considering putting in these regulations that require them to lower that carbon intensity score. So that's why you've seen so many of these projects come up at once. Then once they get to low carbon, you have other opportunities like sustainable aviation fuel. Right now, the only sustainable aviation fuel I know of in the United States is in Georgia, and they're importing the ethanol from Brazil because it's low carbon. So we have 57 ethanol plants on this project alone that could be low carbon and could help create sustainable aviation fuel here by 2026. We have large airlines that have committed to switching to sustainable aviation fuel by 2030. So we have to start making sustainable aviation fuel. How many times am I going to say that? Really quick. And that's what projects like this are gonna do. And we want that ethanol to be coming from the Midwest. Why would we bring in stuff from Brazil when we have it right here?
And that's my understanding. That's where you're going to see the biggest growth is the aviation.
Yeah, that's it. That was not even a conversation really when this project first started, and there were still a lot of benefits, and now it is a conversation, a really big conversation. So, we hope people can see that and see the benefits of it and, have an open mind. But that is all I have. If there are any other questions.
I have my emergency management people here. Yeah. And do you guys want to add anything onto the safety? I know we went to me and John went to a pipeline presentation.
Bill and.
Yeah.
Yes. Which I'm sure you
Yes.
guys belong to.
Yes, my only questions, a couple of questions, maybe one for Chad here too, but I'm gonna make an assumption, that you probably follow the navigator cadence on it. It sounded like you will as far as the training piece. I heard you got kind of a June target for going out the emergency responders and talk about that responsibility.
So I can speak that a little bit. So Rod Dillon is our director of regulatory compliance. He's got a couple folks that work under him. He's going to be reaching out to all the emergency managers in the different affected counties. And what that's going to look like is, I'm going to speak for him a little bit. His process might be a little bit different, but what his goal in the meetings that I've attended is he'll reach out. Now that The training themselves, I think is gonna be more so towards when construction is gonna start. And what we'll be communicating with you beforehand, though, is to have kind of, you guys put a list together of what you currently have in place as far as your resources, and then essentially the resources that you would need to be able to, respond to, potential issues associated with the pipeline. And then we would ultimately be supplying those resources to the county. And then once we get to the training piece of it, now it could vary from once a year to twice a year, but then I understand there'll be turnovers, just throughout or in between those, twice a year training. So we would be coordinating with you to come back out for any turnovers as well. Those training sessions would be paid for. We would compensate everyone for their time and mileage, and if they have to stay somewhere to come out and be present for those locations. And part of those initial conversations as well will be understanding, where are those areas that, we need to come and give those trainings, because I know, at least in my experience, that it's not always the major city. There might be some smaller hubs and smaller, communities and volunteers as well. So understanding that ahead of time is what our goal is to, understand, and then that way we can react accordingly. But again, that communication will come from Rod Dillon, or potentially, I believe he's got one person under him now. I don't know their name offhand, but they will be reaching out. Yes, sir.
That helps, we had a really good relationship with, and it was Ryan, I can't think of the last name, but Ryan was his first name, and it was just stellar. So we want to make sure that continues. So, hats off to. Other question we talked about, I appreciate hearing the adjustment. Chad, I don't know what kind of, first of all, thanks for being here. What kind of future development Fairbank is going to have. I know they're doing some subdivision work out there on that east side a little bit, but it sounds like it's already been addressed. So do you know of anything?
That was on my list of questions when I was contacted 3 or 4 months ago.
Okay.
It was gonna be on the northwest section of the property,
Okay.
which was in Fayette County.
Yep.
So I guess my question to these two would be, why and when did that change? And then, I don't know how familiar you are with that site. You have a large bin that is tarped with corn that they store in the fall.
Mhm.
Where, in relationship to that, facility, where is your new facility gonna be placed?
I'd have to pull it up on Pivot to
I-
look at it.
I was looking, if I'm looking at the correct place, it looks like our line is gonna go around the eastern side of that area. Is it a bin? Yeah.
Go even further east than that. corner line.
Yes, yeah, and then come south of it. But this could change because we have to work with the ethanol plant on where that facility is gonna be located. I don't know if that is set in stone.
So typically when we're working with the ethanol plants, we'll make an assumption or, initial assumption based on, looking at their overview of their ethanol plant, of kind of where we want to put the capture facility, and then think about where we'll be able to route in and out based on that. And then usually what would potentially change that is if the ethanol plant has any, future plans for expansion at their site. So, they say, hey, I know you put it here, but we want you to move it over here. So those are the, the shifts that might occur once we have those, continued conversations with them. To your other question though, as far as when did that occur? I don't know for sure when it occurred. We've been doing a lot of route review of all the new routes associated with the Poet and the Valero, partnership recently as well. So throughout somewhere in the past, I would say month is when that change probably occurred.
And I would just piggyback it, research some aerial imagery, because the $816,000 worth of tax, if you know how that parcel is broken up, there's a small percentage that actually Buchanan County. So I would say 2/3 of it is Fayette, depending on where
It's like a
where
triangle
that piece is
piece.
placed. Those tax dollars could be going to.
Well, and that's what, when we look at it on we can see the county line, and it will be south of the Fayette.
So, yeah,
But
when
like
our,
I said, it could change.
Joel, I don't know how to pronounce his last name,
Gustafson.
Gustafson
Yeah.
is our VP of tax. And again, he has all of those parcel data on our GIS system, and that's where he's actually pulling the information from. So if he's coming up with that type of number, it would, again, be my assumption that it is located on Buchanan property.
And I think his plan is to update those numbers quarterly. And so if there is a change and that capture facility is moved, of course, we will let you know, because I'm sure that will affect the number.
And just physically knowing it, I would anticipate to be south to that ground ring of storage in the fall, for it to be in Buchanan County.
That's exactly what I envisioned.
So it's gonna be closer to State Highway.
And that was where I would go with too, and thanks to these three, for the board members, they have to be conscientious about looking at that. I'd say we'll try to promote to keep it in Buchanan County. We wouldn't want to let that slip, because you look at that, that was roughly 200% difference. So that makes a huge difference in how we plan. And then lastly, I will tell you by far in our experience and my tenure here, I've worked with emergency management and in emergency response. Pipeline's by far the safest, by far the best. You heard within that, they never went even up to what they do. They go way over and above. They train the responders, and we've just had great relationship with them. Last thing I'll leave you with, I'm more worried about you not doing this and what EPA and DNR is going to regulate the ethanol plants out of business. So this is another way we can capture fuels and stuff going into our area anyway. It just seems like the right thing to do.
Well, keeping pull viable is very important to our ag community.
Absolutely. I guess one question I have is, system, pipeline upstream, where's your first shut off upstream? Are you running 20-mile shut offs or?
So we're regulated to have them every 20 miles, depending on, I'll go ahead and.
I was gonna say, typically it's 20 miles, and then depending on HCA's present, it might shift from 20 to 15. And then you conduct what's called an EFRD analysis, which is just a very detailed risk analysis. And that's gonna add those valves in between there, navigable waterways that have a wet bank to wet bank of 150 feet or more. Those are gonna require having within a certain distance on either side as well. So when you're looking at the 20-foot or 15-foot minimum, there are going to be valves typically between that.
Started it out and through this.
Yes, absolutely. Everything will be remotely actuated. And then in most cases, in the state of Iowa, we'll be able to run direct power to those sites. And then it'll be controlled from our 24/7, 365 control room in Ames, Iowa. There'll be, algorithms in place that, based on anomalies and pressure that's detected, if there is puncture or something like that from a third party strike, that's going to be detected immediately, and we'll start that closure.
Listed today, man, with Scuggle, went for a double diamond called Bobcat.
It's another guest waiting to get in.
Oh.
I tried, he muted once and now he decided to come back on.
I don't want to turn it down and then can't hear them if they have a question.
I would just add, so I heard a individual from the Iowa Geological Study based at University of Iowa here a year ago speak on this about 3 hours, it seemed like. So when you sequester this and then release it down into the earth, okay, number one, environmental health person, and Clayton alluded to it, how does it affect our aquifers? And then number two, have there been any of these projects across the country that have, when you pump that into the earth, has caused any earthquakes?
The second question, to my knowledge, no. Again, that's to my personal knowledge. To the first question, as far as affecting aquifers, based on where we're pumping this to, not a geologist, I understand it to a level at least to be able to speak to it at a high level. The formation that's present is a kind of like a porous, sandy geological formation. And what that CO2 is going to do over time, again, the pressure that's present at that depth, 1.5 to 2 miles, is going to end up solidifying that CO2. But as far as affecting aquifers, no, sir. I mean, that's part of that initial permitting process, the EPA getting heavily involved, and that's to our understanding. No, sir.
And then at the beginning, you had on your number one slide, it was, well, you talked about the market. So to me, that means sale. Okay. So the market basically is tax credits.
The market. So there are 2 points that I guess the ethanol plant would benefit. And then everyone asks, okay, well, how is this sustainable for us as the pipeline company, right? So, there's the tax credit present per metric ton of CO2 that's sequestered. That's, you know, the Q45. And then there's the premium that the ethanol plant is going to be able to sell for or charge for, you know, having that lower carbon intensity, you know, ethanol. So the I guess fixed dollar amount would be that Q45, because I believe it's 12 years from the start of operation. So that would end up, you know, running out after 12 years. So then essentially where we would be making money and where the ethanol is still making money is off of that lower carbon intensity score ethanol. And then we would just be splitting whatever that premium is that they're able to charge for that ethanol. So those are essentially the 2 points that, you know, we would make money
In
off
the
of.
12 years, the federal legislation changes.
Again,
Well, in
That's a
carbon,
risk you're taking.
yes, sir.
the increase that they get for having the low carbon, that shouldn't change. The 45Q will go away, but the
Correct.
low
So
carbon piece of it,
so
being
e-
able to charge more. will not.
even if the legislation changes, right? So say the Q45 goes away, you know, 6 years in instead of 12, then, I mean, we would still, and I'm not on the business, the commercial side of it, but I mean, we're factoring in that it goes away anyway. So, I mean, we're still able to function as a company with just making, you know, whatever that split is off the premium off the ethanol. So even if it went away ahead of time, you know, say at 4, 6, 8 years as opposed to the 12, then, I mean, sure, there's less revenue coming in that was initially expected, but we're still able to operate because we're anticipating that in the long run anyway.
And you mentioned, so this isn't under the IUB, just so everybody understands, you're gonna be running under the North Dakota rules as far as your project goes. Is that
Well,
correct?
each state will have its own process. So for all of the pipeline that runs through Iowa, yes, we have to go through.
We
that.
follow the
You'll be
IUB.
using both.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, we'll follow specifically what's required by Iowa for Iowa. So we, at a minimum, we follow all of the federal regulations involved with pipelines. And then when you know, taking Iowa specifically, so the agricultural impact and mitigation plan, one is, at least in my career, is the strictest restoration and, you know, remediation plan that I've ever seen. You know, I've never worked in a state where the state has appointed the type of county inspection that have, you know, full stop work authority and dictate and watch and do the final check off on anything that we do that impacts soil or drain tile. So that's strictly an IUB process. So that would be what we follow for the state of Iowa. Now, the other states have other requirements when it comes to, you know, they might have different requirements with road crossings or different requirements with their agricultural. I think every state has their own form of like an AIMP, but the AIMP that's put in place by Iowa, it's not something that we generate and provide to them. They actually provide it to us. And we, you know, if you want to provide commentary on it, we can, and then they give the final sign off and approval. But ultimately that document is developed by the state and provided to us. So again, at a minimum, we follow federal requirements, and then we tack on all of the state requirements for each state that we impact.
You have a presentation to IUB in June, and then you'll know more if this project is moving forward.
So the presentation in June is a joint presentation with us and IUB. So it's not to IUB. Now, the IUB kind of run the meeting. They've got a checklist of items that, you know, as we go through our presentation, they're checking their boxes to make sure that we're discussing those. So the project is moving forward. I mean, regardless, that meeting is going to be set and approved, whether it's in June or July or August, you know, depending on when they make that approval. But the project is moving forward. That meeting is not like I guess a requirement that we'd be presenting to the IUB. It's a joint meeting.
So what's the timeline for these three to hire an inspector?
It's ultimately up to you. You know, I'd say the earliest that I would, what I'm doing with other counties that have been part of like our phase one that, you know, we've been working with for the past 2.5 years is if they do have a letter of intent with a county inspector, I have quarterly meetings set up that I go and just sit down and give them kind of a project update. And, you know, if they have any information requests, I'll do that as well, because, you know, I just need to maintain communication with him so that they can staff up accordingly based off of what our construction plan is. Now, that construction plan is gonna change from month to month, just based on, if we have a new idea for, a certain area, our spread might, start down here as opposed to up here, as it was the last quarter I met with them. But if you do want to appoint someone now, really the only thing that they would be doing would be having a discussion with myself or my counterpart in the state once a quarter. When it comes to, the document systems that they have to put in place and, some inspection forms that they might have to develop, it would be more so within the, 6 to 8 week mark ahead of construction. So, I mean, realistically, if you wanted to wait, until, we're going to be maintaining as much communication as you'd like from us. I believe, Kaylee, you reach out quarterly to see if, you want us to come in and give this type of update meeting on a quarterly basis. But you don't necessarily have to have a county inspection, group appointed years in advance.
You know who, and Fayette did a letter of intent or anything up there with anybody?
I don't know for sure.
Not for our project. I don't know if I'm sure they did one for Navigator, but I'm not exactly sure.
I don't know if they did. It didn't affect that many properties in Fayette County. They were pretty relaxed about it at that point in time.
I know that, I think the bigger groups that I've seen are like Snyder and Associates, then there's ISG, then there's some counties that have selected, smaller inspection companies or engineering companies from their county. My only caution is when you select someone to be your county inspection, I would make sure that they, number one, have at a minimum some type of pipeline experience, just so that they can, understand how quickly we're going to be moving. Because they're required to staff up to be able to follow our construction or anticipated construction progress. So, a typical construction spread will move 8,000 to 10,000 feet a day. Now,
but you can't start any of this until after the IUB gets through with all their
Correct.
hearings and all their approvals.
Yes.
It could take years.
well, we've already gone through the phase one. So this would be the additional, 14 dockets that we
Right.
submitted. So I believe this first one, we're at like 35, 36 months at this point with
Yeah.
the phase one. So it has taken a little while. But again, ultimately, that would be my only recommendation is just if you hire someone or you want to appoint someone, I would ensure that they at least have the capabilities to follow.
Not gonna be, something like this, we don't need to be bargain shopping. We just need to make sure we have an inspector that's gonna do us a good job.
Yes, sir.
We have time.
Yes,
We
ma'am.
have plenty of time.
And you're less than a quarter mile
Right.
Yeah.
of pipe. And then just to remind everybody, we don't actually have an ordinance for a pipeline. Our P and Z recommended not to adopt one. We won't have any building inspection per se on your structure. I just have to confirm the setbacks. There's no floodplain in that area, so pretty simple from our end. In regards to the inspection.
As far, with above ground structures, floodplains, typically, we might have to, construct a little bit of a raised pad to, account for that.
Shouldn't have any issues there.
Yes, sir.
And then the last thing I'd say, just to add a little bit humor to it, but I would confirm any of the setbacks as long as you get that guaranteed $1 per bushel of corn to all the farmers in the area.
Chances, if not more than that.
Do my best.
I think it would be a good idea to see who they had selects, because it'd be pretty easy to piggyback with the same engineer.
Right.
Okay, I don't have no more
Is there,
questions.
anybody else have anything else? Mr. Clark.
K.
Press has a question for you.
You talked about jobs. Are those like construction jobs, short term, or what, are those long term?
So on the top part of the slide were construction jobs, so that average.
Small numbers there with my old age.
So the,
It's hard to see because of the
so
lights.
the larger numbers on top would be associated with the construction. Because like when you're looking at a pipeline spread, it could be, 350 people just with the contractor. And then you're gonna have your inspection teams on top of that. If you're moving fast enough, it could be 30 people on our inspection team. And then if you have your county inspection team following, they could be, 25 to 30 individuals as well. So the construction jobs, of course, again, are those larger numbers. And then you're gonna have your operations, full-time permanent jobs where, you know, typically how they're gonna look at that is, you know, they're gonna look at the mileage and the facility. I know the capture facility will be operated 24/7, 365. I don't necessarily know how they're gonna staff that, whether it's, you know, 1, 2, 3 people.
Right.
They'll make that determination once it gets to that point. But pipeline, they're gonna look at, you know, a serviceable mileage. And then they're gonna assign, you know, 1 to 2 operators just based on the amount of mileage. You know, one guy might cover, you know, 30 to 50 miles. They want to have him within, you know, like a 10, 15, maybe 20-minute call out if he has to go out, but they will be located locally kind of throughout the state so that they have that coverage ability. So we're not having, you know, an operator based out of Ames, Iowa, where our control room is, driving, you know, 4 hours up to Lyon County. That won't be the case.
And then to explain, you have the capture and compression at Poet.
Mhm.
And then it hits the pipeline. And it goes all the way to North Dakota. Where is it made usable into your final product?
There is no final
There
product.
is no final product, so it'll be permanently sequestered.
It just
Put
goes-
down in the area that's still-
But you had other spigots along the way if you had other businesses that wanted to take it off, you said.
So there will be the capability at some point for, you know, if additional businesses or, you know, like a fertilizer plant, or that's just an example. Want to want to make their connections, but when it comes to the ethanol or the CO2 coming from ethanol plants, 100% of the CO2 that we are capturing from the ethanol plant specifically would have to be sequestered. So if down the line, someone wanted to, you know, like a dry ice, you know, factory or something similar wanted to pull CO2 off, there would have to be a business inputting CO2 into the system that was, you know, say not an ethanol plant. That way it wasn't destined to be permanently sequestered to be able to pull off of that.
So when.
That's our legislators hard at work. That's our federal legislators hard at work, telling us how we can use our carbon.
Oh,
So that would be the only,
because it seemed previous discussions when it's talked, I heard from the, like somebody who's in the home brewing or, you know, thinking about the beer and stuff like that and the CO2. So that's not coming out of Poet then.
no, sir, it can't. It
Why
have
are
to,
they so pro? I don't know.
it'd have to.
They
come-
have nothing in this game.
So say if there was, I'd like to use a fertilizer plant, because I mean, that was talked about really early on. So if a fertilizer plant wanted to, you know, put their CO2 on the pipeline itself to get a type of carbon credit or, you know, to market it in another way, then that capacity that they're inputting would become available, since it is not destined for that permanent sequestration.
And then it goes back to Poet, because everything that Poet puts out, they get the tax credit.
Yes, sir.
It goes sequestered.
Yes, sir.
So they don't want any spigots going off to other businesses.
That's correct. Yes, sir.
Unless they work a deal to sell it.
I suppose, potentially.
Is there anything else?
Anyone else? Bonnie?
First of all, what effect does a project of this size actually have on the carbon footprint? And I'm curious, when this gets out to the Dakotas world already, because I thought that was a good question from Chad about the possibility of earthquakes. How much has this been actually tested? And it has already, I'm assuming, been approved from North Dakota. Who approved that? How did the citizens put it up?
I mean, it's a class 6 well permit. I know that they're still finalizing that process in North Dakota, at least for the class 6 well. Now for these, like the sequestration space, I believe that's a 99-year lease with the affected, you know, residents in that area. I believe at this point we have like, it's either 98.9 or 99.8 acquisition of that, you know, that leased pore space. Now, as far as the seismic studies, I'm not on the sequestration team, but I know that they have from the very beginning been conducting a lot of seismic tests and surveys. It's part of that class 6 well permitting process. Again, I don't know the full extent that they've done that, but I do know that they have been doing that. Yes, ma'am.
I mean, have they actually done something like this anywhere and?
Yes.
Yeah, so they have.
Yes, ma'am. This isn't new technology. The reason it's getting as much, I would say, notice as it is because it will be the largest of its kind in existence. But as far as a CO2 pipeline to sequester CO2, it has been done. Yes, ma'am.
So they have been get into.
Yes, ma'am.
the rock and it's working.
Yes, ma'am.
Then back to my first question, how much of a footprint does this take away from the carbon? How much does it impact a project this size? How much does it affect the carbon?
We have numbers on that, and I can get them to you. I'll leave my card, but I'm not exactly sure of the numbers offhand. That's usually, I mean, we don't come in here to argue the client or the climate aspect of it. Really, what we come in here to talk about is the real benefit of the project to the local area, which is to keep the ethanol plant viable. So that's not something I usually lead with, but we do have those numbers, and I can leave my card and send them to you.
If there's anyone that has any questions that we're not able to answer today, like if it's like for the capture team or for the sequestration team, I mean, we work very closely with them, but we are kind of compartmentalized when it comes to major details. So if you do leave your information with me, or we can leave our information with you, if you want to shoot those questions to me just via email, I will get them answered for you.
May I please have a card from each of you, just documentation?
My contact information, I took my cards out on my desk last week for a meeting. Yes, ma'am.
Financial ledger we made available as far as comparability, apples to apples. It seems already it's been questioned, the $816,000 that's come thrown up there. People see that, everything else, they see green, they don't see anything else. So with that, is there something, same way with the jobs. We talked about all the jobs, different places have jobs come in, factories and that type of thing, and it really doesn't benefit the local. Doesn't benefit the local people.
Yeah.
Because you bring in tech people from different areas, different specialties that may not be available there. So, and one other point that stirs me a little bit and scares me is when the comment was made about eminent domain. We do not want to give up local control for anything in Iowa, and especially Buchanan County. And there was a comment made that eminent domain hasn't happened yet. And we just had in the last legislative session, we had 2 attempts swinging by secretively to try to take away eminent domain and local control, due to the energy, the energy companies. So if, what really could we think about is how much is Buchanan County potentially, what are they going to pay?
Right. Actually, probably the 816,000 tax is probably a relatively decent number. The farmer is going to make more off of it, but by having the pellet plant continue to operate. If this is ran through the IUB, that is nothing, that is a board of 3 that makes decisions. And at that point in time, we have nothing to do with it.
As Rick said, we don't know how long this is. I don't know if the ethanol plant may be deemed not worthy by our federal government in 5 years or less.
Well, that's what we're trying to avoid with projects like this.
Right.
And as far as the eminent domain piece, what I can speak to is that we have had a goal since the very beginning to get 100% acquisition. With a project this size, 2,500 miles, that's extremely hard to do. But what we found is that when we can sit down with people, have an open conversation about the different things that we can negotiate on, which is virtually everything, people are understanding and we can come to an agreement. But there are going to be people out there that refuse to hear it from day one, and that's okay, but the problem we ran into with our phase 1 of the project is that notification corridor that I mentioned earlier. We had the active route and then 1 parcel on either side that we could work within. So if Joe is on the active route and he also owns these 2 parcels, by state law, we cannot move off of that area. Only the IUB can dictate if we, and that comes down to the hearings and how they review everything afterwards. But we have to make it work within that 3 parcel area. On this new route, all these new laterals, we should have, I believe, 3 parcels on either side of the active route to move within. So that's going to give us the opportunity to work with people more and, lower hopefully the chances of using that eminent domain. But again, as I said, we still don't have permission to do that. And ultimately, like she said, it comes from the state.
How many acres of tillable farmland are gonna be used? Quite out of use.
I wouldn't say they would be put out of use.
That's really gonna be put out of use. You can farm on top of the pipeline easement indefinitely. So the way that's gonna look is you're gonna have 100 feet is gonna be the proposed easement. That includes the temporary construction. So you're gonna split that in half. So you have 50 foot and 50 foot on the other side. One is going to be what would be considered the permanent easement, which, you'd have traditionally the center line would be in the center of that 50 feet. So 25 foot on either side. And then the other 50 feet on the other side is what we would consider temporary construction workspace. So that would revert back to the landowner after construction is completed. And then that 50 foot would remain as the permanent easement. Now, that permanent easement, say if a farmer owns a 40 acre parcel and we cut diagonally across or straight down, it doesn't matter, but just for demonstration purposes, if, say we cut diagonal, so we affect, their entire property with that proposed easement. Well, after construction is completed, they can farm as normal across the entirety of that easement. The only thing that we ask they don't do is construct a permanent fixture on top of the pipeline, like a building or a shed or things like that. But when it comes to farming itself, it can return as normal, once the pipeline construction process is completed.
Production is still, from what you've studied and learned, it doesn't decrease production, but
So
going down 4 feet in the land.
So there were, I think the average was like a 10% yield loss that was noticed from like Dakota Access going through, which is why they what I would consider beefed up the AIMP, the restoration plan, and introduced all of the changes that they've, introduced today. We are paying with the easement payment up front. You get your payment for the easement itself and the temporary workspace, and then you get the 3 years, or I think it's a 240% tiered, so it's 100%, 80%, 60% crop value payment upfront with that easement. And then say after year 3, you're still, say you see at year 3, 4, 5, 6, hey, I still have a 5% yield based off my yield maps on my property. You can bring that to us and we will compensate you for that 5% loss that you still see. So even though you're getting that 3-year upfront payment, if it continues over time, even with, after the extensive restoration that you show a small percentage yield based on your yield maps, we will still compensate you for that.
And there's part of this thing is what to do with the inspection of this, because of certain soil conditions, wetness, soil moisture. The inspector actually has the ability that there's been studies done on this, how it affects the yields and stuff. They can actually shut the project down.
Correct.
Until the soil conditions are correct, so they don't have excessive compaction.
And that was not present when Dakota Access went through. I know that, I believe ISG was the prime inspection company selected for Dakota Access. And speaking with Tiffany, when I have my little quarterly updates with her, asking her kind of what her biggest battles with Dakota Access were, one of the ones was, working in wet conditions, since they didn't have a true stop work authority. Going out there saying, hey, it's too bad to work based on, XYZ, and the contractor essentially saying, well, I think I can work in this. So them not having that ability, which they have now, is again another protection. It takes that, that question, the questionability away from it and gives them the power.
After the pipeline's in, what happens if the farmer wants to tile that area? There's gonna be expense involved with that, because you're not gonna wanna dig it up.
Right.
Who's gonna pay for that?
Well, one of the things that at least I've done in my negotiations with landowners is I'll ask a farmer, typically one of my go-to questions is, hey, do you have any anticipation to tile this field in, the next however many years? So if he says, okay, well, I'm thinking about tiling it in 2 years, and that lines up being 2 years after construction, then we will take steps during the construction process to mitigate any impact that our pipeline would have ahead of time, so that you're not worrying about it on the back end with your tile. So that's some things that are very important during the negotiation process. At least what kind of answer your question. Right.
Tile's gotta be fixed, tile's gotta be
But
replaced.
to your first question, say hypothetically, we come and put our pipeline in and we go the normal 4 foot depth of cover. If you have to come in and, do your pattern tile after the fact, working around the line itself, there's not going to be any major concerns there. I know I've talked with, farmers that, we purchase an easement on their property and they have Dakota access on their property. And they say, okay, hey, I called because I wanted to lay a piece of drain tile in this area, and Dakota access has, 9 miles of red tape I have to go through to do any kind of work. No, I mean, typically a company is going to have a crossing requirement when it comes to their pipeline, but even though it's, a high pressure pipeline, the standard requirement is you can mechanically dig within 2 feet of it, and then you just have to hand excavate, within those 2 feet. But I mean, other than that, there's not going to be any super strict requirements when it comes to working around the pipeline. You make your 811 call, you come out there and you adhere to those requirements when it comes to, the drain tile contractor, but that should be the only thing they have to worry about. There shouldn't be any major hurdles.
All right.
And that's, talking with our COO.
Yeah. Okay, so. Yeah, it is good information, and we need to take a little bit of a break, so.
I'd be happy to step outside if anyone has any additional questions.
Another thing's gotta be concerned, we know that yields are gonna go up, that's just a fact. So where's the market's gonna be at for these increased yields?
I guess.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Appreciate you taking your time.
Absolutely. AC gets fixed.
Hasn't even been turned on yet.
Oh,
Thank you.
I need to write mine down.
Here, I can get a
I
pen.
have horrible handwriting. I would love.
Well, just-
You want to put it next to this?
Do
Yeah,
you guys
I
have my
got the
card
grant
yet?
part.
Yeah.
I just.
I have it.
Oh, that's correct.
I'll leave one for you.
They're gonna bring their. How much?
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
You betcha.
We had a couple come in late.
That's just because it's been over any project.
Unless they were here for the public hearing. Thank you. Nobody's, they should even sign in for the very
Didn't get it.
Thank you.
Thank you again.
Sorry, we took so.
No, that's all right.
All right,
Good discussion.
are we ready to go on to our,
Yeah, I have an election to get ready for.
yeah, let's get this guy.
Well.
Great people.
I think you're just interested.
I'm doing good. How are you doing, Mr. Rick? Good to see ya. 11 o'clock. We'll see what happens. Oh, Rich, you won't eat him anyway. You lost your mind before and found out.
I've never done that.
By the time you done doing bills or whatever. Yeah.
Something does it. Roger, doing it.
Good.
Yeah, well, I'm retired now, so I don't know.
Oh, well, that's gonna
All right.
make this guy sick of retired too.
We still got the guy on here. Yeah. Let's do it.
Yeah, I'm here. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Yeah. Can we put him up there? You know how to put him up there?
No, I don't. I'm not IT.
Let me go.
Sharing the screen with us.
I don't know how to get that up there.
So-
You guys will probably have to pull it up on your.
Should be so lucky.
Is this gonna be based on this here? I'll step on my neighbor's.
Oh, you're fine.
Yeah, it should be.
But, fuck. So, okay, so.
Well, my person is-
Did we lose him?
What?
Did we lose him? No, he's back.
No, I'm here.
We just don't know how to pull him up. And I don't have IT instrument or phone at this point in time. Welcome to the US. Oh, we got it.
Hey.
Perfect.
Yeah, but now he's there, but I don't, if you look at my screen, I have no way to go back or make him bigger.
Oh,
I did share the slideshow. I don't know if that's what you guys want up or if you guys want my face up there. I don't know where my slideshow
I've
is.
got
but
that.
it's-
Print it off in front of me.
Okay, you guys printed some off.
Do a time limit on this, to start with.
Let me talk fast.
Yeah, I can. You guys want me to start?
Where'd he go?
Yeah, go ahead, Nick.
All right, so this is a LED lighting proposal for Buchanan County. There's gonna be 2 buildings involved. It would be the courthouse and then just a little bit of your guys's county shop or the roads department there. I came up a couple weeks ago and worked with John and we went through the courthouse. So for the sake of everyone's time, I'll try to get through this quickly, maybe about 10 minutes. On page 2 here, this is the comprehensive LED lighting upgrade for all the interior and just a few exterior lights throughout those 2 buildings I mentioned. Eliminate all the ballast, upgrade all your fixtures, give you increased light levels and consistent light colors throughout the buildings. The top right here is obviously the total project cost. That total project cost includes everything. So that's soup to nuts, documentation, materials, lifts, installation and labor, through a local electrician that we would contract, and then we dispose of all your old fixtures. So that comes in right around $52,000. We worked with the independent Light and Power to come up with the incentives, which is roughly $3,000, leaving a customer cost of about $48,600, meaning that Buchanan County would be liable to fund 95% of the project.
I have a question. So what does it cost us to go through you for you to use an electrician here in town?
What?
And so what is your cost? What is your, how much are you making on this?
I
You
mean,
said
that would,
an electrician here in town.
I guess
yeah, so
her
Go ahead.
question would be, what's your markup on the electrician to us?
I would have to, look at those numbers, honestly. This is something that my operation teams put together. I do the proposals and the site assessment and work to present it, but they kind of put all the numbers together on the back end.
Okay.
I mean, if you guys want to get another bid, that's obviously something you guys can do with
Well,
being independent.
Right, for the procurement policy, we would have to anyway.
Okay. Customer cost, would be, like I said, the annual savings would be the big part of this project. It's going to be a little over $9,000, giving you a payback of just over 5 years. And then the fact that all of our lights are DLC certified, they come with a 50,000 hour lifetime expectancy, so they're going to last about 15 to 20 years. Your lifetime cash return would be about $110,000 on a project like this. Any other questions on those numbers?
Was there consideration, there has already been some lighting LED replacements done, like right here in our courtroom, our room right here, assembly room. There's been done already. There's been some done in the recorder's office. There's been quite a bit done already out in secondary roads in the shop area and everything. So
I only
taken into consideration.
Yeah, so like at the shop, I remember that very, basically all the high bays had been done. So all I included at the shop was the offices, which hadn't been done, the parts room, and then upstairs at the loft, and then there was like a lean-to that hadn't been done. But those are the only things included at the shop, and I actually broke that out. So, and then the same for the courthouse. If I noticed something was already LED, I obviously did not include it. Page 3 is a table of contents. I won't go through all these numbers in great detail. I know we're kind of running late here. We broke it into 4 categories, so we'll jump into those 4 categories. Next. Measure 1 would be the LED interior fixtures. So kind of anywhere you have that recessed drop ceiling, you're going to have a recessed troffer with a ballast. We would just recommend removing those troffers and then installing an LED panel. The LED panel is wattage selectable and color selectable, allowing us to increase or decrease the lighting levels to make sure that, we are increasing the levels and having that at lighting levels that everyone are agreed on. And then again, as I had mentioned before, this comes with a 5-year warranty and a 50,000 hour lifetime expectancy. Measure 2 would be the TLED retrofits with a ballast bypass. So as you can see in the photos, basically anywhere you have a surface fixture, we would just do a direct wire. So we would remove the ballast, but use your current fixtures. Still a great solution. It's going to provide all the benefits that a new fixture would, but it's going to be a little bit more cost effective. And again, still comes with that 5-year warranty like new fixtures do.
Yeah, Gina, what is your price per fixture to do that?
To do the TLED?
Yeah, when you're talking about doing that, yes, the retrofits. Because don't you just kind of
yeah, I mean the biggest cost there is going to be labor. I mean it's going to be.
And what's your price per fixture?
So that would be on page 3. So if we looked at, there's 13, one lamp, 4-foot TLED 8s. It's saying that the customer cost would be $964.
That includes the light.
Yeah, that includes everything. So all those numbers would be broken down on page 3. You have the quality and then the customer cost and the incentive available.
Okay, go ahead.
Measure 3 is just some screw-ins, closets and storage areas that I noticed that weren't LED. So I'm not going to say too much about that. We would change out those bulbs if needed. And then measure 4 would be the exterior fixtures. Just one LED wall pack outside. So remove that current wall pack that has a metal highlight bulb, put in a new wall pack. And then there's a landscape fixture outside as well. So put in an LED landscape fixture. Measure 4 is a canopy style fixture on the courthouse. So just that also does have a ballast, so removing that ballast and putting in a high output LED bulb and getting rid of that metal highlight bulb. And the only thing that I do want to mention, I had forgot that there were screw-ins. The screw-ins are the only thing that don't have commercial, that have commercial screw-ins, so that they don't have a warranty, but everything else has that 5-year warranty. And then page 8 is a breakdown by facility. So you have the courthouse. Again, not going to go through that in great detail, but just so you guys can see the cost of the courthouse versus the shop. And then on page on page 10, you have the Buchanan County shop and the cost for that as well, just so you can see that breakdown.
So. Okay, so I guess I'm kind of confused because you say you're gonna use an electrician that's from here.
Mhm.
Did you already contact a electrician? Like, how can you already know that, how can you know their labor costs?
I mean, we've done over 350 facilities throughout Iowa and quite a few counties. So just, I mean, we have contacts already throughout, like we've used Nelson Electric out of Waterloo. We've used Cedar Valley Electric out of Waterloo. We've used quite a few other electricians in that area. So, I mean, just having.
No, look for Buchanan County.
What?
So they're not from Buchanan County.
No, we would use someone from Buchanan County, but their cost should be pretty well in line with what we've seen out of Waterloo, Iowa. We've also done projects in Coralville and Iowa City. So just taking all that data in, we can kind of look at, we've paid other electricians in the area, but we would and could use someone from Buchanan County or even Independence if that's what you guys would like to do. Any other questions on that? Obviously, again, I won't go into a bunch of detail on but those case studies are projects that we have completed. So I added some counties to the end of it. So if anyone would like any references from the city of Charles City or Parkersburg or other counties, Ida, Plymouth, Harrison, let me know. Be more than happy to put you in contact with who we worked there or who we worked with there. Next steps, obviously you guys decide if you'd like to move forward with this project and the scope. Would you like to do the courthouse or the shop or both or whatever that scope of the project is? And then we just have some paperwork that we'd have to do with Independence Light and Power, but we would ship the materials to the location. We would contract, manage, and pay a local electrician. They would install the new lights, dispose of the old lights, and then at that point, once the project is done and you guys are satisfied, that's when we would seek payment for the project, but there's no payments due until the project is complete.
Okay, any more questions?
Is that still in play where you can get a loan and pay the loan back in energy savings?
Yeah, we do offer payment plan if you guys would like a payment plan. I
You're
know
talking about,
Right, you can do it either way. You could just pay this
you're talking
cost
about the
in
one.
budget, or you could, in your estimated savings, you can pay that off with your estimated savings cost.
He said that he'd already worked with him. Didn't you already talk to Indytel?
Yeah,
And get
we reached out to
$3,000 reduction?
Yeah, we reached out to them for the to get the incentive cost, but we as ROI do offer financing. The financing has a 3.9% interest rate. So I just tell
What
you
was
just
that
real
rate?
quick.
3.94%.
So it's not on there, but if we did like you go to my, where's that at? If we did a 36-month, your monthly savings would be $775 and your monthly payment would be $1,400 at a 36-month financing.
I guess I got enough information to look at the slides and
Right.
digest the information. See what we want to do moving forward.
Well, we can't move forward without another bid.
Right, exactly.
Nick, we appreciate your time and sorry our meeting ran late today, but we got you in.
No worries. Thank you.
Thank you, and we'll be in touch. Thank you, sir.
Have a good day.
You too. Hey. Public comment?
I think Roger's got something here.
Me,
You? Okay,
I have a list. Okay, just because I haven't seen all of you board members, just a little update on the remodel out at the emergency management or the emergency operations center. Currently, our capital projects fund balance is in the hole over $100,000. I have to have that fund out of negative by June 30th. Our only option is to hire a bonding attorney, hold public hearings to do an internal loan, fund loan agreement. Because I don't know when this grant money is coming. So I've never done that. I have to reach out to other auditors. I have to figure out who Buchanan County has used for a bond attorney, and it's gonna cost us some money.
Why can't we just transfer it out of our capital projects and pay that off?
We don't have enough money. We do not have enough money in that line item to cover all of this expense. You're talking the line item in the general fund.
Right, because we put $150,000 in there for capital projects.
Correct.
And I thought the only thing that we took the roof out of the senior center out of our, I
There's
believe.
been more than that out there. I can't pull that up because I have to log into my other system. But I can tell you right now what.
It'd be sort of helpful if if we're able to see what those line items actually had in them.
All you gotta do is ask, report can be ran. We have 100, if my calculations are correct, we have somewhere around 118,379 to pay yet. We have already paid out 256,000. So no matter what, gist of it is, just so you know, thank you. I gotta figure out how to get that done, and I gotta get it done before the 30th of June.
Okay. And in the meantime, we'll work on getting those,
Line balances.
we got. See where our funds are. Work
If
on
they were
getting
low,
the-
I'd let you know. And this one, I just don't know how to handle this one.
It'd be nice if they release the grant money.
Well, I can't rely on that.
Well, I know.
I could let it go if you guys want the write-up on the audit.
You have to put your mean voice on again, Paul. Like you did with the.
Historic for
Yeah.
people. I'm not sure how I got that one pulled up, but
The
I
other
did.
thing that was discovered recently with the auditors being in here is, when we switched brokers with our health insurance. Previously, Augsy and Oys did our 509A certification, which is a report that needs done every year at the renewal of our policy.
What is it again? 509A?
509A. This has not been done because Assured Partners don't offer that service, and no one failed, or someone failed to inform me of that. So we have 2 years that need to be done. So I contacted Ryan. He found me someone, an actuary that will do it. And they are out of West Des Moines to the tune of $975 per report. We need 2 of them done.
So it'd be $1,900.
Yes. Then I gotta figure out where we're gonna come up with that money. So I guess the gist of it is, I mean, if you guys want reports regarding anything, tell us, we will get them. I'm not sure how I'm gonna come up with this or get it all done by June 30th without getting penalized.
Yeah, because we don't know what our revenues are. We see our expenditure report and we approve them, but we actually don't know.
You see the expenses that are paid out.
Yeah, we see the expenses. We don't know what each line item has left in it for the year. We don't have any revenues that are coming in. We have kind of, it's like, not a clue. At least I feel that way, John.
It's what you get the other, not too long ago, EMA and what was the other one?
Got the expenditures, and then I got ours.
Yeah. But a lot of these expenses that are happening are not budgeted. That's where we get into the pickle.
I'm gonna ask a stupid question,
No, the question is stupid.
but, one city, every month, in fact, I think it was on every agenda, you got a breakout by account, where you are, what your budget is, and how much % of the budget you've spent, and so forth.
Do you want it per department? How do you want it?
Tell you
If
what,
I did-
after the meeting, I will run a copy to show you what I'm talking about and see if it's something possible.
I'm sure it's possible. I don't have a doubt in my mind that it's not possible, but that's what I need to know, what you guys want to see. I mean, we can do it overall, we can do it by fund, but I think you'd be better off if you had it by department. So you know which departments
To
are,
narrow into,
yeah,
I would agree.
I think by department's the best.
how often do you want this stuff? Do you want it once a month at the end of the month? Amanda runs monthly reports every single month and sends them to the department heads.
I don't think every meeting's necessary. I think monthly would be great. What do you think?
At the end of the month. That puts us past our second claims date usually, typically.
Yeah, and we can, I mean, that's not a problem whatsoever, but that money is already gone once you get those reports.
Right.
But I think my biggest concern right now is if we don't have this money budgeted for this fiscal year, we can't spend it.
Right.
We can't be spending it. Because I don't know where to come up with it at. So I emailed our auditor this morning and pretty much that's our only option to roll to. Unless she comes back, has something, she was gonna look into it further. We discussed this last week. But otherwise, I have to this week get a hold of a bonding attorney, figure out what that's gonna take, because I'm afraid we may not have enough time for the public hearing.
I think Taylor's actually does bonds. Municipal bonds, and
I need to,
We're seeing Whitney.
I'm thinking it might be them that we have used or Northland Securities.
yeah.
When we did for the P25 project.
You said we got Taylor's and Cooney involved. But where we use it doesn't really matter.
I think somebody like Northland or any of them would be very good, knowledgeable how to guide us through the process.
Anyway, we're not making a decision here though.
What's one
No.
Maggie Burgers with?
Maggie Berger is,
Spirit Financial.
Spirit.
Well, I will just continue to investigate, but like I said, I've got to get something done this week and I do have an election tomorrow too, and I will have ballots here. Then also tomorrow to get started on the primary, so. I'm just a little frustrated because I don't have enough time in the day to pick up all these pieces.
I know years back, we had that issue over there in the sheriff's department where the phone system, we needed to get that replaced and we were short like $200,000. So we did a loan with the local bank on that.
We could do that too, if you want to go that route. I don't have the time to do all this legwork.
Because we know apparently we've been guaranteed that this grant money is gonna come. We just don't know when.
Could be 2 years from now.
Well, and yeah, they have, I know they've been sent the invoices. I know they've been sent the pays. That's where these invoices have been cashed. And
I would just highly suggest going forward, any of these grants, before they're accepted, we need to know to plan ahead if it's an awarded grant or a reimbursable grant. Because if I would have known that this one was just a reimbursable grant, which is great, I really would have pushed for this project to wait until we had it budgeted.
we would have done it in June. We would have started in July instead.
It could have been done the same time, just a year later.
Yep.
But at least we would have had the money in the budget at the time.
Yeah, I didn't know it was reversible or
Reimbursable.
reimbursable.
I don't think anybody did.
Well, for right now, I would definitely too like to see what our fund balances are and move ahead with options.
You want your fund balance or you want your department budgets? The two different things.
Department budgets
Okay.
and fund balances. Because the budget is just gonna tell us what they've spent and how much they have left. Is that correct?
Correct.
And I see what John's saying, like, I'm gonna use an example, when I go to my regional intercog meetings, they have everything by line, how much has been expended, the balance that's left.
Mhm.
We always had it at the city council.
Just gotta ask for it. I'll get you any report you want.
Just one, that's just the police department.
Mhm.
And
I can do those.
well, and I think maybe we should look at the departmental one first, and if we want to go deeper, request that.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds good to me. We're not making decisions.
Anything else, Chris?
You.
All right. Anything else for the good of the cause?
Public,
Roger?
public,
I can just talk from here, can I?
sure.
Yeah.
Okay, with the storm that went through a week and a half ago, Pine Creek Cemetery, had quite a bit of tree damage. But there's damage to some stone. And we're looking to find out if there's any assistance that the county can provide us, any way, shape, or form. It is gonna be quite costly, and being a small cemetery like that, we just don't have the funds available. You know.
Two things, here a couple, 3 years ago, I think Don Chalka, he's already left. He worked with, Bill Reedy on this, that Hickory Grove, they had a lot of storm damage and trees down and stuff. And actually the brush is still piled out in the ditch out there right away. That was able, because of that being a county cemetery and stuff, that was able to fall underneath the umbrella of our county insurance to pay for that damage and stuff. The trouble with Hickory, Pine Creek, that is a standalone association, it's not a township, or it's not a county. So you're kind of left out of the limb there, the whole thing. I understand there's like, so far you've got an estimated cost there of $6,500. But that probably is not include the stone damage, that just.
Right, that is to remove the tree.
Yeah, and I was talking to Bill Reedy because he's very knowledgeable. He's kind of like the go-to encyclopedia about cemeteries. And I talked to Jerry France, who's one of the trustees.
Okay.
And back, I know years ago when I was trustee, we gave like $300 years ago to them, but now they've taken away from Kowalski Cemetery and given more to the Pine Creek one and stuff to help them out with maintaining and upkeep and stuff and maintenance there. So that's been increased to $800, but you know, it's nothing to cover this kind of cost, but
Right.
by law, the trustees can't come up with anybody. They got a maximum amount what they can levy for and spend of their cemetery dollars. And at that $800, they're already maxed.
Okay.
They don't have any additional to give.
Okay.
So, I guess there was talk about, Bill was saying something about a GoFundMe page was gonna be looked at. Maybe getting hold of relatives, that have loved ones buried there and stuff like that. I mean, you got a real dilemma going on there. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
But, and you know, that's something we don't budget money for something like that, cemetery, expecting there's gonna be some storm damage out there. We're gonna have to come up with the $6,500. There's no way we know this, and it would be wise for us to be doing that.
Didn't Rick Wolfco say he was gonna look
Right.
into?
Yeah, he said something about if they're, even though Buchanan County is not declared a disaster, if they do it on a regional thing, maybe counties that are right next to us, he was gonna do some checking to see if you could piggyback on that declaration,
Like historic.
an historic part of it. So I would advise you to stay in touch with Rick to find out what kind of information he's finding out on that.
Okay.
It sounds like right now that's our best option. I mean, or possibility, I should say.
Sure.
So I would talk to Rick Wolfpool about that, see if there's any possibility there.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a.
Yeah, and that was, one of the things that we had discussed at our meeting was GoFundMe or a Facebook page, contacting distant relatives, you know, and seeing if they help. So.
Diane's probably got her check already made out.
I'm trying to get a hold of those cousins to cough up.
So, yeah. But,
Yeah,
All right.
I sympathize with that whole situation, but I don't think there's anything, you just heard Chris say,
yeah,
we got,
yeah.
we got money issues already. We ain't got no more to hand out.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, well, but thank you for the information.
And if I hear of anything or, you know, I'll surely let you know.
Mhm.
And Bill, if he said it, Reedy said if he comes up or any thoughts, he'd get a hold of me. And if I do, I'll pass that information on.
That'd be great. That'd be great. All right, thank you for your time.
Put up big signs that's free firewood you cut.
Well, we've already got some of that done.
Yeah.
So. All right.
Well, good
thank
luck.
you very much.
That's what I was wondering about too, if we should get a hold of John to do. It's like a plan of action. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else for the good of the cause? Let's try to keep it a little bit short because Chris does have to deliver some election equipment to Fairbank because they are having a special election.
I won't take too long. I'd stopped up and talked to Chad on these wind turbines about maps. And I've never, the only maps I've seen, you know, like since last summer, I could draw with a crayon. He helped some and there's, well, I told him, there is a company that I've used in the past, it's Acre Value, who is mainly for ag use. What I envisioned is, you know, where we could see the land area, the CSR, and now that the ordinance has been really done, you can layer the setbacks. You can layer, you know, put a different color for conservation easement or conservation areas, parks, cities. What you end up with a complete picture of what they're talking about. Also, you can expand that out and look at adjacent areas. He says that's kind of available and the county has a mapping service that.
We don't have a mapping service.
Right.
We have a GIS person that does stuff for the county, but it's not a service that we provide. we have it out there on the assessor's website. You can see the maps with the different layers.
Well, it's possible to do it with my own GPS, do a sonar on my boat, I can create maps. But, I was just showing him that like acre value, I'm sure there's other companies that they're very cheap. And it would give anybody interested an idea of what really we're looking at. The other thing is they're done with the ordinance and I haven't heard anything about when the Board of Supervisors might take this up. Have you set a time or?
I don't know, maybe after the primary election.
Don't look at me, ain't my decision.
That's a long time. I mean, it's fresh in everybody's mind. It's not that long enough.
We did extend the moratorium for a year.
See it sooner, but it's time to move on.
Yeah.
And the other thing in the past, well, 2 zoning meetings ago, there was a gentleman that spoke at the end and he very well spoken, and he represented himself as a member or an employee of some sort of the state of Iowa. There was a good catch at that last meeting when they went to approve the meetings that went to the county attorney and it said, this guy does not work for the state of Iowa. He has no, and you know, they went back 10 minutes, wondering how they should put it in a minute. But we now say people come into these meetings. I think that they should be vetted and represented. If they're lobbyists, they should be represented, and people should know that.
Right. Oh, I agree.
And that's, you know, 3 times that's not been done. The other thing is that you can't stop it, I understand it. You probably know about it, the unsolicited emails and texts. That apparently they're using databases, phone numbers, where they can get it, people in Buchanan County, to promote their cause. And if you don't know it, there's a new one this weekend.
Yeah,
I know what.
I got 3 emails. It's quite obvious.
Now, it's a carefully worded,
Misleading.
misleading quiz, but I mean, these people aren't to be trusted.
Right.
And yet, for maybe the average Buchanan County person who may be on the fence, you know, they're not paying close enough attention to know that they're being misled.
Right.
And that's a concern. So I guess that's about it.
Okay.
I appreciate it.
Gary Butterfield.
Thank you.
I live in Walker, Iowa, in Buchanan County.
Thank you, Gary.
Anyone else?
I'm gonna just say something. I'm gonna try to cut down if we've extended this too long. 2020, the Board of Supervisors hired Intercog and to review and revise the county's zoning ordinance, which basically was the sections of the WEX and land preservation. So the board adopted that. I mean, Clayton, you were part of that. Why wasn't the comprehensive plan reviewed at that time? Maybe you can't answer that now, but the question that I'd like to answer something. And then, you know, so 2023, the P and Z was asked to review and revise after only 3 years, the plan that was adopted in 2020. And I just want to give you a compliment. I believe using the P and Z was actually represents the county and citizens' needs truer than any assessment by an out of county company. You know, the 9 members were appointed by the Board of Supervisors. The current process, again, kudos to the P and Z, is very transparent. There was nothing hidden. There was nothing, the open meetings were published, the minutes and materials. The assistant county attorney revised or reviewed and added wording as far as recommendations. And also, I just want to remind people that we have over 800 citizens and landowners that have signed a petition supporting the P and Z. So, the recommended ordinance matches nearly all of the other counties, or nearly many of the many counties in Iowa. And the key terms that are common are food, fiber, and livestock, which is basically agriculture. And the other one in most of these is that the number one natural resource in the county is our soil. So preservation of our soil, food, fiber, and livestock, those are things that reinforce what the comprehensive plan has in it. So I just want to thank you for that. Somebody else asked the question as far as the WEX recommendation, so I'm not going to ask that. And that's quick. Right? Is that too fast or? I mean, I'm trying to be fast because this lasts a little bit longer than I thought.
Yeah. Sure.
Tuesday, National Weather Service confirmed that at least 15 tornadoes struck Iowa during Tuesday's severe weather outbreak. This included a long track EF2 in southeast Iowa that stayed on the ground for 42 miles, and a strong EF1 borderline EF2 right here in Buchanan County that carved a path 11 miles long. Video footage taken during the outbreak and posted on YouTube shows a tornado touching down and moving through a field full of wind turbines. The turbines were stopped, but when the tornado approaches one of the turbines, the blades start spinning anyway, indicating that the brakes were not sufficient to stand up against the force of even a small tornado. A larger tornado goes off, turning them into missiles. In an average year, Iowa has 267% more tornadoes than the national average. And I personally think that's scary. We have those going through a wind turbine field. And that's why I support the setbacks that were put in place by the P and Z committee. They researched this. They know what they're talking about. It's an incredibly intelligent group. And we fully support them. We hope you guys do too.
Thank you.
The WEX ordinance recommendation of March 6, 2024 calls for 100% removal upon decommissioning of wind turbine. This will require complete removal of fill materials and completely restore the land to its previous condition. When NextEra made this presentation at the P&Z on February 2nd, 2023, Buffenmeyer made a statement about decommissioning it back to original state. In NextEra's Facebook page, they state, when turbines are eventually decommissioned, we remove the wind turbines and return this landscape to its original condition. I replied to them that that was not a true statement, that you remove the tower and replace 4 feet of topsoil, yet you want to leave a chunk of concrete weighing 1,300 to 1,800 tons and 165 tons of rebar behind. Not exactly what you can call return the land to its original condition. NextEra answered back saying that we do restore the land to its original condition. We encourage you to learn about facts here. They refer me back to the same article that I originally referred to. They could not come up with a better answer than that. At the December 6, 2023 P&Z meeting, Dale Creed stated that as an elected soil and water commissioner sworn to protect, sustain, and improve our soil and water, he had to ask for total removal of the entire turbine base at the time of decommissioning. One of his main concerns is that water flows the path of least resistance. It follows disturbed areas and along buried structures. The concrete base will act like a conduit, funneling surface water 14 to 20 feet deeper and faster, skipping the complex filtering of surface nutrients and contaminants before reaching groundwater. So for 30 plus years, the water will be going down the funnel without proper filtration. Think of what that can do to the drinking water in our wells. A good reason why these concrete bases should not even go into the ground in the first place. Yet NextEra wants to get away with just replacing the top 4 feet of topsoil. At the time of construction, did they store the original topsoil or sell it? When it comes to time to replace the original topsoil, will it be the same quality as what they removed? Or will it be replaced with a lower CSR rated soil? So the bottom line here is that when you put all this concrete on rebar in the ground, you should not be allowed to leave that scar behind. It's only fair that what they put in the ground should be taken back out. We support the P&Z Commission and the WEX ordinances they propose and ask the board to adopt them as written.
Thank you. Anybody else for the good of cause?
I'm going to pass it late and I want her to go to.
All right,
I think we all need to go to a flower shop and start planting flowers to make things happier.
Better wait 2 more nights. It's supposed to get down to low or high 20s. Again,
all right,
Well, nature's just so fickle.
she is.
Wendy, did you have anything that you wanted to? Just flowers? Okay.
Just flower, I was just saying my flower. This one, and a smile on your faces.
I would make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you. And a first and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye,
Thank you, everybody.
What you guys do.
thank you.